for the cannabis amendment. There's I think a CCAN amendment. I can't remember. I don't have a list of them here today, but there's a bunch of amendments that really should have been in the original. You kind of want to stay away from a ton of amendments on a land use bylaw unless you're changing districts or you have growth in the community. And in some cases in the old bylaw, there's really not a good enough structure for development and growth. So all we're going to do today is educate you and talk to you about the significant changes proposed in this new bylaw. The new bylaw, we've left it with the track changes, so you kind of know where we're coming from. And we just got to just amend this RFD from 1 to 4:30 today. That's my mistake there. So basically, and I'll just kind of go through the table with you on page 4. And this can go through it in more depth, but we want to be able to track all the land use amendments. We have no way of tracking right now because you have to look through all these amendments from years to see where somebody made the amendment, and we're going through the server and we're missing stuff, so we want to have a better track change. Because we missed, at first we were missing the cannabis one. At first, we couldn't find it. It's sitting, but we can't track it. So Liz wants a better tracking case for the amendments. We need a user guide at the beginning of the bylaw, so how do you use this thing? And that's mainly for us as administration, but it helps the clerks, it helps everybody, and how do you use this thing? And that's all brand new stuff that we're doing. We have to have added definitions for the words should and may. May, you can, should.
That was one of my big points you mentioned. It's not should, it's shall.
Exactly.
Saying should is very, very, very different than shall. Yeah. Should is like may, and they are not required. Shall is what I think you meant, not should.
I 100% agree.
Okay.
You bet.
There's a very, very clear, explicit, interpretation of both those words. So,
exactly. And it's hard if you don't have that explicit determination, because if folks are coming for development plans or we've had a few challenges here as we're getting everybody worked around and getting everybody in the process. And when it's unclear, we just sit around and ask questions. So that is in my notes. Of course, under Part 9, specific use regulations, we want to incorporate amendments as approved through bylaw 2019. So we want to incorporate those definitions as well. And, under definitions, we want to add a few more, and we want to clarify them better, and we want to update some of the definitions better. You bet.
So did we not talk a while back, though, about rolling a lot of this stuff into a definitions and interpretations bylaw on its own?
I think with the land use bylaw, I'll be honest, I'm not sure we can. I think the definitions of the land use bylaw have to stay with the bylaw, but we can talk to Liz about that. I don't have a clear answer for you.
There's no legal reason why we can't?
No, I don't think there is. I think it's more of a convenience if I have to look at a bylaw for this and look at a bylaw for that, but it's worth chatting.
But if we get, this is for every other government I know of other than municipalities, that's how they do it. It streamlines and simplifies and creates harmony across all the different bylaws.
Yeah.
If we have a definition in this bylaw that varies from a definition for the same word in another bylaw slightly, and now it creates confusion, and someone has a legal argument why that is just invalid altogether because there was confusion.
Actually,
realistically, having a homogenized, this is how we define it within this municipality, regardless of the bylaw, regardless of the context. Now it removes the doubt and any sort of grounds for someone appealing it or disputing it based on ambiguity of definition.
You raise a good point. I was just sitting here thinking while you were talking, and I may be reversing my thoughts on that. I'll tell you what is complicated. I'm working with a municipality right now who do some investigation, don't say what or how, but the person under investigation has indicated that the manager has obstructed them from writing tickets, okay? And there's no definition.
So what is obstruction?
Of obstruction. And it's in all their bylaws, shall not obstruct. Well,
what is that?
Yeah, there's two different things. As a manager, and it's a bylaw tag, right? So we write a bylaw tag. I can say, I don't like the way this is written. I don't appreciate the way you did this.
But that's you providing oversight, not obstructing.
That is correct. Where obstruction comes into play, it comes into play on a violation ticket, like you'd get road sign if you were speeding, right? So under that, you cannot obstruct because it goes to court. Now, on a bylaw ticket, I can obstruct, and this has happened before with councils. It happened in Pinoca, where the mayor got a ticket, and one of the councilors, like Councilor Tracy, would come into the CAO and council and say, you can't give him that ticket, no chance. Then other councilors would come in. So then the peace officer would probably give a ticket to somebody else, so that did happen. It was a speeding ticket, then it was a different councilor was rolling a stop sign through it, a dangerous intersection, on and on. And they kept coming to the peace officer with these violation tickets. So that's obstruction, because nobody's above the law, right? And so they had to clarify there. So what, I was just thinking of this one I'm on right now, working on, and you make great sense, because I think we need to do that, I really do.
Yeah, I mean, even if we had to carbon copy certain definitions in here for some statutory reason, which I don't believe we do, but even if we had to, then fine, but it should be all included and or drawn from a single homogenized definitions and interpretations bylaw.
I agree, and here's another example for you. In the traffic bylaw you have here, it talks about a heavy truck.
Yeah, what does that mean? And are we going by Alberta traffic standards? Are we going by some other standard? Or I don't know, does the federal government have a different standard? Or I don't know, is it Montana? I have no idea what standard we're going by.
That's right, and there's also no definition legally of a heavy truck, and most municipalities have it.
See, I guess that's my point. So include a definition in that specific bylaw is great and everything, but now when we contradict that somewhere else, now we have a problem.
We're in trouble, and
So
really,
you just have it all in one source.
Because we'll use the National Safety Code vehicle, definition. So provincially, it's 11,794 kg, federally, it's 4,500. So if your vehicle is a federal truck and you're over 4,500, you're off our streets.
Like, literally, our definition section should be refer to definitions bylaw.
I agree.
Right, it simplifies all. It's like, if we wanted to talk about specific definitions, that's great, but I don't think they should be in this file. They should be in that other.
Well, make the definition section shorter, right?
Well, yeah, it saves a lot of paper waste for no reason, and realistically, everyone who works here should literally have a copy of that definitions bylaw just sitting on their desk, because it's going to be something that's referred to often, not just for this. I get for ease, it's nice to have it in here, but that's true for everything.
Yeah, no, you're right. And actually, we could section it off, your land use definitions or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a procedural question, not related to one way or the other. Would we have to amend every existing bylaw to reference the definition of bylaw, or?
No, as they come up, you can just roll it in then, and in the definitions bylaw, you can say that it shall take precedence over anything existing within that bylaw, and then anytime we do a new bylaw, you would just say that the definitions are, as per.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to ask just in case.
Oh, yeah, otherwise
Go back and change all our.
Yeah, you can say, with the passing of that bylaw, the definition section of every other bylaw is hereby repealed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Saves a lot of work.
Yes.
Definitely. So this great discussion is why we do this. It's a great discussion. So, we need to look at, minimum definitions for secondary suites. I'm just gonna whip through this just to kind of give you an idea where we're at. District changes, addition of new broader catch-all definition categories to ensure uses that are unique and not specifically contemplated but are appropriate. And these are all just different definitions. Changes to daycare, incorporation of amendments approved through the bylaw, development permits. We added a lot of additions to this section to provide further clarity as to what types of development are exempt from development permit requirements. It wasn't clear in the old bylaw, so we cleaned that up. And when development permits are not required, like we've had to refund about 3, nothing huge, but 3 permits for fences from years ago, because they came up when we're doing the audits and stuff, and they were, what do we mean with that permits for residential fences? And we did the right thing, and we were $50 at the time, so we just refunded them.
Yeah, it has to be a pretty big fence, but it's like 6 feet before it's got to have a permit.
Yeah, that's right.
Who has a fence over 6 feet?
Yeah, and none of these were, but they got charged a fence permit on their property, residents. Commercial is different, if you're putting your commercial fence, that's
Well,
different.
the front yard, I think, is only like 3 feet or
3
something.
feet in the
but-
front yard.
So if someone has a 4-foot fence in their front yard, fine, but like, that's not very common, I don't think. I can't think of anywhere in town.
No, I think probably Mercedes and Kyle King's place, just a fence guy here, Kevin, I call him.
Well, but it goes by the street address, not so the frontage is not, like, it's, regardless of what people see, is not necessarily, it's whatever the actual street frontage is.
Well, the amount of complaints that we've had against the Kings has been ridiculous.
Well, I think it's because there's
Well, they're
certain people with axes described, and
yeah, it's the same act. He makes a go with that.
Before we get too far with that,
Yeah.
just a question, that
Yeah.
open house you've got scheduled for the 22nd, why is it the 22nd? It just, it's on page, page 3.
Just a minute, I'll tell you why. It is, May 22nd, it's just Liz and I that do it, because you have to have one with the bylaw, with the land use bylaw, to show the amendments bylaws.
Okay,
Land
so-
use bylaw requires an open house.
Oh, okay.
No, it requires it's like a public hearing.
Yeah.
I just,
Like, you have to call it to order and take, like, public comment.
okay,
And then we have to take those public comments into advisement when we go to vote on it.
okay. So.
Again, same thing, you're not there to respond, you're there to just take feedback. You're not there to, like, you just show up and say, does anyone have anything to say? And after no one has anything to say 3 times, meeting adjourned.
Okay, so does the council have to be for this whole
Yes.
thing?
I don't know, Council Corey, because
Yes.
this is an open house, it's not a special meeting.
That's what
No,
I
it's a public consultation. If you go to public hearings.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So for a public hearing, if a member of council is there in attendance for only part of the public hearings, they can vote on it if they wish to. If we're not there, then you're not allowed to vote on it. So only people who attend the public hearing are allowed to vote on the bylaw when it comes to passing.
Yeah, let's get Liz to clarify that, because to be
Yeah.
honest with you, I've never been to a public hearing with the land use bylaw.
Well, I've never had an open house either, so
Yeah, you know,
that's where you bring all the charts. and
Yeah,
all
it does
that.
require a public hearing.
yeah.
I don't,
I think the public hearing is Linda, right?
Jeff, go ahead, something to comment on that?
Yes, I was just gonna say, per, Lynn's timelines that she gave us, I'm just gonna look those up. I do believe that there is a separate public hearing process that
Yeah.
will come.
Yeah.
So that's a
I
Thursday.
may not have it on here, but I
Thursday
do.
night, the 22nd, right?
yeah, if we're doing an open house just to get
Yeah, for 5
feedback or
days.
information
Yeah.
from people, that's great and everything, but yeah, the public hearing is the
Hearing comes
statutory
later.
kind of important part of it, and you have to be in attendance for that if you want to vote on it.
Yeah, I
If it's
don't,
just you there, well, you have to be there, because someone has to call it to order.
Well, that's what
If
I'm
it's just you there, then you're the one who's voting on it, I guess, if it's the public hearing.
Yeah, you don't have to be here for the public house, or public.
Open house, yeah.
Open house, oh my, sorry, my brain's a little fuddled today. You do have to do the public hearing after. We have to show the public what we're up to, and Liz brings all the
Yeah.
charts and the Bristol boards. You folks don't have to be here for that.
Okay.
that's my mistake. I should have included it with the April 8th RFD, but that will come, similar to when we do a land use amendment, that will be, second and third reading will come after. the-
Yeah, I get that
the
part
same-
of it, it's just
yeah,
the
so July-
22nd, the date, I just didn't know where it came from, and
Gotcha.
I get it, okay.
Yeah.
It came from, we wanted to get it over.
Well, I assumed that, and
Yeah.
Are we recording this, just for clarity?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, well then, I'll save my comment for later.
Got it. So, a lot of times in these open houses, nobody really shows up, we do have to advertise it, we'll just have it in the front of we won't have it in council chamber, we'll have it in front of the office there, and Liz and I'll drink coffee and.
just before you get too far along, so.
So May 22nd, I could take off my calendar.
Yeah, you can, yeah. Typically, councils don't show up for an open house.
Okay.
Cool, so we're just about ready for Liz here in a few minutes. I'm just going to, let's see, we're gonna talk variance. She's gonna talk variance with you, so I'm not gonna steal her thunder. Development appeal process, she's added some clarity. Minimum specified penalties, she's gonna, provide some clarity. She's gonna add the incorporation of a new direct control district approved through bylaw 2024-07, so that has to be put in this bylaw. Fairland condominiums, we're gonna have to put that in, because I just don't know who the developers in the house, in town, what they want. We're gonna have, some very serious regulations on ground covered structures, like all these garage things that are nasty and messy. Number of dwelling units on a parcel, so we don't have a developer crowding in like that, subdivision just outside of Beaumont, close to the Spine Road. We have all those $1 million houses there, and now the development that's there, it's kind of sad to me, in all honesty. They put a huge development ringing these $1 million houses, and it's all crowded 2 stories, right? They're gonna have a mall there and everything. It's just, when you come out of Beaumont, like when you go through Beaumont from south to north, and when you get to the last part, and you turn left to go out towards the Spine Road, I don't know what street that is. Anyways, you have all those houses.
Between Beaumont and Highway 2?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, kind of Beaumont to Spine Road, actually.
520.
Yeah, and all these beautiful 3, 4, 5, and 6 acre $1 million homes are now ringed completely in
Well,
with two-story development.
I didn't know what was going on. I said all the construction, but.
Oh, it's really sad, actually. So we're gonna talk too about outdoor storage and lighting and, servicing and vehicular address, alcohol production, breweries. We didn't have anything in there. So we're gonna add that. I'm just flipping through. I'm on page 8. I'm just going through quick. Drive-throughs, we have to, in case we have a Tim Hortons or somebody come along, we have to plan for that, because someday it's probably gonna happen. Bed and breakfasts are gonna happen, as well as Airbnbs as well. So, we're adding regulations on page 9 to the gas bar section, and we'll talk about that. Home occupation, so we've got major and minor, it streamlines the problem. Right now, home occupations have just been typically home occupations. We have to stick something in for secondary suites, because a lot of new homes now have regulated secondary suites. And you'd be amazed, like when you look for rentals, most of these are secondary suites in Edmonton, or Leduc, the whole bit, right? They look nice, but, basement's a basement, whatever it is. Show homes, I have a feeling we're gonna have a few of those fairly soon, so we have to have something about show homes. The telecommunications towers, so we don't approve them, having a process and consideration for recommending support or non-support in a land use bylaw. It's been shown to be an effective way for the municipality to play a role in the siting of them. So we need to have that in our land use bylaw. So TELUS just can't come in, or Rogers or wherever, and stick a pole right in the middle of our boulevard there, kind of thing. It's a little silly, but portable storage container is direct use. We don't have any kennel stuff, so we've got to add that. And then how to incorporate all the amendments, and then build a new section on subdivision regulations. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And then you'll see all the changes in the red on the old one, and then we have the new one that's behind it that we'll work off of. So that's kind of what we're going to discuss today. So lots of questions, ask them. Lots of I don't understand, ask them. What about? And then you've already done a great job so far. It certainly clicked my brain onto another thought process, so which is a bad thing. So that's where we are. So we should be here in about 3-4 minutes.
I don't know if she'll text you when she's ready.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll make sure
Make sure you get her.
I think she's got it anyway, but I'll
I think so. Hang on, I'll just check my phone with your permission, Mr. Mayor.
tell her I'll call her.
Here we go. Here we go again with Liz trying to join. Won't work.
I have to call her. But it's saying no response.
Close to next to it, man.
I think it's calling her.
Okay.
This one didn't go straight to, and no, there she is.
There we go.
Yeah, just call her.
Okay, perfect.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect.
Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Liz, you're the star of the show today.
Excellent. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, I will stop sharing my screen. Oh, good.
Okay. Right. You guys will see a few different documents that were sent over to you, but the real intention of today is to walk you through the revisions. So it's 143 pages. We've used track changes for anything that we're looking at changing. I'm not going to stop and talk about typos because those are pretty self-explanatory. And it's going to be a bit dry. I love this, but I don't regularly have many other people who love it as much as I do. So I acknowledge that up front. There is no way to make this more exciting. So we have started by putting in a very brief user guide to the land use bylaw. It's not a policy of any sort, but it is intended to just give an idea to the average Joe who might pick up this document and think, hey, I need some light reading to fall asleep to tonight. So that's what this is. It's not going to answer everyone's questions. The fact is, if somebody has a question about a land use bylaw, they're probably going to end up on the phone with me. But just, trying to give a little bit more perspective on that. All the spacing will be fixed at the end because we've used track changes. We don't bother to fix any of that until we accept changes and make it look prettier. So purpose, one thing that was missing is we never spelled out that we were establishing the development authority for the town, which we have to do. So we've just added that to the purpose. Again, typo. Rules of interpretation. The first multiple sections of a land use bylaw, to be really, really honest, a municipality can't really change. When we start to talk about things such as effective date, conformity, you know what? I'm going to back up and go to the table of contents. When we look at
sorry, Liz, when you're on a page, can you just let us know what page you're on as you're chatting?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, we're on the table of contents, which is page 4 of the land use bylaw. I don't know what it is in the agenda package.
Yeah, you're right.
When we look at a land use bylaw, your first section's enactment, and that's basically how your legislation exists. It talks about that your old bylaw gets repealed or replaced with the new one, and it just talks about how we approve a land use bylaw. Interpretation is our definition section. So we talk about the shoulds, the shalls, the way we interpret things. Your general administrative procedures, Jesse, I'm not sure what's happening. Your screen's gone a little weird.
Yeah, I am having it weird on our end. I think I just managed to get it.
Okay. So general administrative procedures. We'll go through this in detail, but this is where we talk about what does not require a permit, who the approving authorities are, when council has something in front of them, what the subdivision and development appeal board is. Your development application process is literally how somebody comes in and takes it through the process, which that process is governed by the Municipal Government Act. Then we get to the appeal process, again, governed by the Municipal Government Act. The bylaw amendment process, that's the same as what we use in how you approve any bylaw. So these first 6 sections, there's almost no room for amendments. These are standard. If you looked at any land use bylaw across the province, these are pretty standard. So the changes that you're going to see today are ones that we're adding for clarity, ones that are legislatively changes from the province. So we need to make ours reflect that. And some ways of just really adding some clarity. Once we get through those sections, we're going to get to enforcement, general regulations, specific use regulations, and parking and loading signs and districts. That's where you guys will have a lot more input. So just that's kind of the overview. And it really is sort of tedious. So now I'm going to go back down and jump back into enactment. This is your purpose. These are things you can't really change. We're going to fly through the first few sections. Effective date is now spelt right. Interpretation. We added the word may and should as critical things to define because we do use those words a lot in the planning world. May is discretionary. Should means you really should make it happen, but there is a little bit of discretion. So shall and must are mandatory.
We had commented earlier, and may and should are very much, it needs to be kept coherent if that's discretionary, whereas shall is the requirement. The way it was presented, sometimes it seemed like it wasn't necessarily quite that clear. It seems like should was almost implying a requirement at times, as opposed to it should have been written as shall sometimes, I felt like.
And so those specific ones, we can talk through where you have ideas where the should be a shall. Because that is part of what makes every municipality unique. Some places would rather it be a should and some places would rather it be a shall. So that is exactly a great piece of feedback that we'd love to get from you as we go through this.
Okay, so if anybody's got a question, just jump in. Is that okay, Liz?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so definitions, we've added some. 1 in 100 year flood was not in here before, but we do talk about it. So our goal is to have definitions for any use that's in the bylaw, so that people know what they are. And so agricultural processing minor, we've added that. That has to do with the newest direct control district that we have been doing with, I can't remember their names off the top of my head. But so we're adding that in. Agritourism business, we're adding in. Alcohol production, adding in. These are all very common definitions that are used across the province. So we're not creating necessarily anything new. And the area structure plan, area redevelopment plan, again, very common definitions that just weren't in here. And so the cannabis definitions, the cannabis whole district that you guys have was done under former administration, but it was never consolidated into this document. So the markups for the cannabis is to consolidate that approval that was done a couple of years ago into the document. So when you look at the land use bylaw, everything's in here. That should have been done when that was done the first time, but for whatever reason it wasn't. So we're just going to take care of that consolidation now. Data processing centers, you guys don't have any right now, but they become a really hot topic in the province. So we want to make sure that there's an option there should one come in, and we're starting that framework as well.
Yeah, with the new AI stuff, Liz, we got to be prepared for it because you never know. We could have enough land to put up something like that.
Well, we have preposterous electrical rates. We have some of the highest electrical rates in the world. So why would a high energy intensive operation ever set
I'm
up?
sorry.
Doesn't make sense. The economics of that don't even remotely align.
The province would have to give us a bunch of concessions.
They would have to cut electricity to 1/8 of what it is for us to be competitive.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay.
She's still having a good time barking at whatever is out there. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, development agreement. These are things that we should have defined again. Development officer. So your development officer is technically Donna. I provided her advice and then she makes the signature on the document. So technically it's her. We don't write that into the definition, but just for clarity for you guys to know that. Then again, we've just gone through and added more definitions. All of these are definitions that I feel could be things that would be helpful and relate to different uses throughout the bylaw. So unless you want me to, I'm not going to read you each one.
Well, you're doing good, I think. We're fine.
Okay. So, yeah, more different versions of definitions. We've created a home occupation minor and a home occupation major, but we'll talk about that further into the bylaw. Home sales center, this is particularly important considering the possibility of morning song moving forward, and they want to be able to do that type of thing. So, housing modular is been removed. Again, that has to do with one that we actually already approved. These really are just a lot of housekeeping of the definitions and making it so that it is much more clear for what we're talking about for developers and landowners coming in to do any work. And simple things like medical clinics we've added in, but not limited to. Whereas before it just said it had to be a dental office, physical therapy, pharmacy, counseling, doctors, or chiropractor. Well, what if you were an occupational therapist? You couldn't work here. So simple things by adding discretionary by words like, but not limited to. So we've just, like I said, gone through a lot. We've added qualified professional. This is something that I'm actually adding across anywhere I'm working now. Is it's one thing to say your application requires biophysical assessment. If you don't say by a qualified professional, then people come back and say, well, I did it myself. I know that that tree is a daisy. Well, daisies aren't trees, but they've decided that they're qualified and they're going to do it. So we've defined what this means, and it's good practice, and we wouldn't accept it from somebody if it wasn't qualified. So it's a good practice to state it. Yeah, it's really, we have 2 top of slope, so I'm gonna delete one of those right now. We only want 1. So, moving on from definitions, we get into the general administrative procedures. So, this is how we tell people you have to have a development permit. And essentially, no development shall be undertaken within the town unless there's an application has been approved, with the exception of the developments not requiring a permit outlined in point 2. Every municipality has one of these lists. Your list is very similar to most, but does have some nuances. So we went through it, and I should add, one of the things in here is this is for a development permit. You still need, for example, an air conditioning unit. You won't need a development permit for it, but you sure do still need to get your building permits. So you have to get your gas and plumbing permit to put one in. So that's outside of this, but this talks about maintenance. You don't need a permit for it. You don't, section 618 of the act, which outlines things that don't need permits. Obviously the act we have to respect. AC units. A building which construction has started for that didn't need, that's maintenance. Play structures for personal recreation purposes. So someone in the backyard wants to put up a playhouse for their kid. They don't need a development permit. Home occupation minor that meets all the requirements of that category. Retaining walls less than 1 meter in height. Signatures not requiring a permit or signage, not signatures. Urban Holdings District, anything that's a farm. Gates and fences, as long as they meet the height requirements. All types of fences in the Urban Holding District. Temporary buildings, which are less than 6 months, that where the permit that you're actually building for has been issued. So that means if you had a building, if Morning Song came forward and they were going to build 5 houses and they were putting a trailer on site, and they had the approval for the houses, then they wouldn't need to get an approval for that trailer as well. Public works maintenance, town buildings, we don't have to get permits. Basement development that does not change or add to the use of the dwelling. Garage sales. So we don't need permits for people running garage sales. We don't want permits for people running garage sales. This just is something we've been doing anyways, but we're putting it into the policy now. Day homes regulated by provincial licensing requirements within a private dwelling. Let the province deal with day homes. We don't need to get involved in childcare. All buildings which are less than 15 meters in area which conform to the setback requirements of the land use district and are not utilized for habitation. If people are going to live in it, we need to have permits. So this is mainly your garages or your sheds. Demolition of anything that a development permit would not have been required for. Dugouts in your urban holdings area. Excavation, stripping, and grading and stockpiling as part of an approved development permit. Flag poles, swimming pools, a permitted commercial use relocating to an existing building with a previously approved commercial use. So fire pits, landscape providing the grades and overland flows are not substantially altered. Temporary use of a building for an election or a census purpose, and the construction of decks or patios if they're uncovered and less than 2 feet above grade. Installation of cement or other hard surface materials that is not to be covered or partly covered by the roof or a structure. This one I need to look at a little bit more because we actually do often require a permit if someone is going to tie into our infrastructure. So the wording of that one just needs to be corrected a bit. And driveways, So these ones we need to review a little bit more. The language isn't quite what I was thinking it would be. So that's a pretty standard list across the province of things that wouldn't require permits. So non-conforming building and uses, anything that's non-conforming that exists right now, we'll continue to work with. So the act is really clear on how we do that. So this section is just to reference the act. The next section is your approving authorities for your development officer. Not going to read through this, but this really sets out how the development officer is designated by the CAO and in accordance with bylaw 2023-09 and what their job is to do. So ultimately, a development officer is responsible for all development permits except those that are in direct control districts. We talk about that in the next section where council has the authority designated to them for direct control districts and subdivision authority. So subdivision and development appeal board, I don't know the last time you guys had an SDAB hearing. They're not common, but that is, you guys are part of a regional board that does all the heavy lifting for that. And they would then make that decision, and they're quasi-judicial. And so an important job, but just again, references the act and how they would go through it. Your development application process, this sets out what you need for all your applications. We've just added some clarity in here, such as drawn to scale and metric measurements. I'll be really honest, almost none of the applications we get for somebody building a garage or a deck are drawn to scale, and we'll keep working with that. But if somebody comes in and they're building a brand new house, yes, we do have basic requirements and we need a higher level of standard. So we go through all of that, and essentially, the development authority can ask for anything as long as it is reasonable. So that's the important thing there. So we also talk about the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. When your bylaw was drafted, that didn't exist. So now we're bringing that in as part of the processes as well, should something we do have to go there. Referral of applications, we're just tightening up the language, providing some clarity. So we're now on page 38. The decision process, we renumbered things oddly. We'll fix numbering all at the end. Variance authority. This is an important one for you guys because your variance has not worked for a long time. Variance authority basically is if somebody comes in and their setback is supposed to be 1 meter and they want to go to 0.8 meter, there's limitations on that. What we are proposing is that the variance authority be moved from 10% to 40%. This is a big change. 10%, I will say, simply does not work. From what I have been able to tell about previous administration, they just ignored it and did it if they wanted to. That is not okay. We cannot, as administration, just ignore that unless that number is actually amended. So municipalities go anywhere from 10%, which is very rare, to 50%. I would say the most common is 30 to 40%. And this is something that we would love your input on in terms of what do you guys want? So an example of when variance doesn't work, I worked for a municipality that somebody built a house, an actual house, 1 centimeter beyond the variance. And we were told to tell them no, refuse their permit. Well, they'd already built it. They built a brand new home and were told they had to tear it down. They, of course, appealed it to SDAB and, of course, won because SDAB was never going to make somebody tear down a house over 1 centimeter. But if you hold an SDAB meeting, you got to pay for that SDAB meeting. There are times that even with a variance being higher, we would refuse it. But this is something that we would love your input on. Is there a number that you guys think would be the right number?
You looking for it right now?
I realistically think 0 is the right number. I don't think there should be a variance. You put the number that you want, and yes, I agree, people are always going to push it. They're always going to try to get more. So when you say, well, there's a variance, everyone assumes that that variant number is the actual number. Nobody actually looks at the real number. Then whatever the number we're comfortable with is, should be the number, and the variance should be 0. Follow follow the number that's written. Otherwise, why do we bother writing it?
So one thing that I understand exactly what you're saying. One thing we have, and I've highlighted on the screen on page 40, is that a variance request has to be maintain the purpose of the MDP, intent and purpose of this bylaw, be desirable and appropriate, and the variance has to be truly minor in nature. And sub 4, that they must submit a letter explaining that. There was an example where somebody came in and wanted an 85% variance because they just wanted their house in a different spot. That was turned down, absolutely. So this is for unique circumstances, but if this is really up to the council. So it's not just, I want a variance, you're going to get it. It's, I want a variance, here's the rationale for why, and then we go from there.
As soon as you say, well, if gee shucks, you have a special circumstance, and if you have a special circumstance, we'll allow a variance of 10%, well then everyone thinks their circumstances are special. Every single human being you talk to is special until you say there's no acceptability for special. I can't remember dealing with a single person who didn't think, yeah, that's the rule for everyone else, but not for me. Like, everyone thinks it's just, their case is unique and special in every circumstance.
Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying. Absolutely.
So is that the way we should write it then?
Well, it would save a lot of administration time when somebody wants to come in and argue why they're special, and you say, no, this is the rules, follow it. It saves a lot of time and aggravation reading letters and telling them why they're in fact not special. I don't know.
Have you seen it written that way, Liz?
You can put any number there. There is no variance, period. One of the main areas that we see variance requests for existing is when someone comes in for a real property report for a certificate of compliance and it doesn't meet it, we can't provide compliance. So then they'll apply for a development permit to get a variance, and that would probably be the number one time that we would see it. But I don't work for any municipality that has 0 variance. I can say that with certainty. The minimum I've seen is 10. And
I can appreciate the on an existing structure part of it, but for anything new, it should be an on it. Yes, for whoops, in hindsight, 20 years ago, somebody built something and gee shucks, like that. I understand the in hindsight having some sort of discretion for variance just because it's at a certain point, it is what it is at that stage. But for someone who's trying to build new and right out the gate isn't complying with the, like what we're coming up with, then why are we bothering coming up with it? It seems like there shouldn't be need for an exception right out the get-go for anything that's not. Yes, fine for an existing property that, like I say, 20 years ago somebody did something, fine, but that's kind of a hindsight kind of fixing the past thing. As far as moving forward, I don't see why there needs to be any variance. I just don't know how to word that in the, a person has to work on the wording, but yeah.
What perhaps Liz and I may, I may be totally off basis here, but I guess in looking at past examples, we just granted a variance for the greenhouse coming in, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that it was desirous that we keep it within the same look as GNN's new building, and that's the reason why we did the variance.
It was direct control.
Yes. There's no variance there, Jesse. There's no variance there.
Direct control, everything is up for discussion because it's direct control. That's a whole other weird ball of wax.
Oh, okay. I thought we granted a variance as part of direct.
No.
Since them doing anything is kind of essentially the same. We have to explicitly kind of approve whatever they're doing there because it's direct control.
Okay.
So
it's sort of the same, but not.
I put up on the screen something that we've done in a different that I've done in a different municipality. I don't know why there's a blue line there though. I'm sorry. What this municipality did is the maximum variance shall be 20%, except for variances, which are the next one, which is a 40% variance from a property line. And then what they did is for an accessory building built prior to January 1st, 2019, they may have a minimum setback and minimum rear yard setback varied at the sole discretion of the development authority. The reason for this is those old garages that were built 50 years ago, and they didn't bring out surveyors to do that work. And so, because this municipality was having a ton of appeals based on old structures when they were coming forward to sell and the garages didn't meet the setbacks. And so this is what we did there to deal with that issue and to stop having to pay for subdivision and development appeal board hearings, because those are expensive. When you have to have one and pay for that board.
No, and I agree with that, like this sort of approach of like, okay, fine, if, yes, your house was built in 1963 and whatever, like, yes, I understand but like, yeah, putting like a date on it and saying like, yeah, we get it, something that's old and existing, we're gonna accept, but moving forward, follow the rules. Like, it seems like a good way of approaching it, I feel like.
I would stick with a 10% still. I would not eliminate any variance. Personally, I doesn't need to be 40, but I would not eliminate it.
Like I say, yeah, I mean, the more you give, the more people take. So, I mean, if we really have to keep something, fine, but it should be less, not more. And if we are comfortable with more, then why don't we just make the number bigger?
In any event, you're gonna vote on it anyhow. I mean, I mean, we have to.
No, only for direct control.
Only for direct control.
Oh, is that right?
Only direct control comes to council.
So if you're saying, oh, we're actually comfortable with 99% lot coverage, then say that. Don't say, well, we have 40%, but gee shucks, we're gonna make an exception for everyone who wants everything oversized, right? Like, I don't know, like at a certain point, whatever the rule is, what the rule should be, right?
Yeah.
95% of people are going to come in and meet that requirement, and there will be a circumstance, and this is why I would say do not get rid of it entirely. There will be some weird circumstance that we have not thought of where somebody is trying to build a deck and for whatever reason, again, I can't even think of one, it doesn't make sense to have that setback, and all of a sudden we are in a point where they have to pay money to amend a land use bylaw to allow them to have a little bit more. And so we could take it away. That is ultimately your guys' decision. I've never seen a zero variance.
Well, most of them seem comfortable with it we've got the 10%. And you're right, other bylaws have, if your house has been built such and such a time. So it just depends how many rules, I guess, for lack of a better word, we want to put in there.
Yeah, I'm saying if it's a pre-existing thing, having a larger number rather than smaller to give flexibility or whatever, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Just moving forward, I don't want, like, the bigger the number, the more it's just a bigger number then. Why are we pretending like the number's not just whatever the bigger number is?
Yeah.
I would think you just leave it at 10 then. So I don't think you want to go any higher, because
Well, yeah, I
you
guess.
go higher, you're just leaving yourself open to more.
Well, it's more negotiation and more headaches and more delay, right? And then you understand delay.
Correct.
Well, and like I say, at that point, if we actually are gonna have that problem, then just make the number bigger if that's what the reality is gonna be.
Yeah. I'm trying to think ahead, Liz, and maybe help me out here a little bit.
Or smaller, I guess, in a setback.
Yeah, and smaller. If, we haven't had much development, I get that, but it's coming, we know that. So I think, I don't have an issue with the 10%, and then Liz, if you want to grant older buildings a little different variance because they've been here a long time, but maybe use that 10% for all new construction unless they're trying to, I don't know how to word it, I'm just yakking here, but like, what's your experience?
If they actually legitimately had a thing where there's some true, like, imperative, then they actually can come to council and we can do an amendment. So, like, if there's actually some real thing where someone's gonna build something that's so amazing and there's a legitimate pressing need, well, then fine, we can go through that motion and everyone will understand, including the person who's building, because they understand they're building something that's off the, beaten path.
Yeah.
When somebody's just trying to oversize build their, whatever.
Their shit.
When someone needs an 18-car garage, they need to go buy an acreage. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think we need to keep it consistent, and well, we have been keeping it consistent. We just have to keep it. There's going to be another land use bylaw in 3-4 years. We won't be a town of 3,000 people in 4 years, right? Maybe. No. So I'm comfortable with the 10. But your thoughts, Liz, what are you comfortable with from your experience? Councilor Corey's got a good point.
So what I've put on the screen, 10 is low, but I'm hearing loud and clear that that's where this council wants to be, and that's totally your prerogative. What I have done is pulled over the language that is an accessory building over 15.0 meters squared built prior to January 1st, 2025 may have a minimum side yard setback and rear yard setback requirements varied. And the reason for that, this is the same language, but a newer date. we have to pick a date. And basically it says anything that was prior to that, if you didn't get your surveyor out and you were an idiot, we'll work with you because we're not going to tell you to tear it down. New buildings, totally different.
Can you see that?
I'll move it over. Well, okay,
Here, how's that?
it's in the red, that should
You
change.
know? Yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
red there. Yeah, I like that. I can tell you, as being a chair of an SCAB board, or was for 6 years, this is always a sticky paragraph, because of course, as an SCAB board, we can alter the variance, that's our prerogative. We can uphold the development officer's decision, or we can quash the whole thing and make it come back for another development permit. And altering variance, when they're fighting you on it, when they go to SCAB, I think I've only, as chair, our board in Leduc, only in 6 years did 3, where we said, okay, you're allowed to do that. The rest of the time, they all got turned down because it made sense. And I think the city of Leduc was this 10%, if I remember. I don't have the LEB with me, but.
I don't know.
Control.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier to adjudicate, right? That way you're not paying for a board to sit there for 6-7 hours, and we've had some of those. They're
Yeah, but
brutal.
only sometimes there's actual contentious issues. This doesn't seem like it needs to be one.
No, I agree. No, I agree. Let's read that paragraph again, would you mind, Liz, that you just wrote in red?
An accessory building over 15.0 meters squared built prior to January 1st may have the minimum side yard and minimum rear yard setback requirements varied at the sole discretion of the development authority. The development authority is not bound by the maximum variance in section 4.56. In accordance with section 4.5, I need to pull the right number, of variance application shall be required, and the applicant must demonstrate the structure was built prior to January 1st, 2025 in a manner deemed satisfactory to the development authority. So Google Earth now has historical aerial photos, so people have proven it that way. I've had people give me date stamped photos from back before cell phones that had like that little yellow number in the bottom corner of the date. And so it's been done elsewhere. You could say before 1992, like you could pick any year. I'm just suggesting January of this year because we know then that it's an older building. Anything built after then would be newer.
It's just the wording here, it's accessory buildings explicitly. I don't do mean, I know when somebody changed their bay window and reframed it and it extended out an extra 3 inches, or again, a fence, or why are we limiting it to just accessory buildings in this?
I've never had a
specific
house
case?
that's been off that much. So the municipality that we came up with this for has garages left, right, and center that are built poorly and with no setbacks. So for them, this was a garage issue, not a house issue. So that's just where we stole it from.
Yeah, I guess just like the logic of why we're including this section for our purposes, limiting it to accessory buildings, we might still have some of the same problems where whether it's a deck or a fence or whatever, they're, like I say, their porch on their house or whatever, if it was whatever structure improvement, whatever it was, I guess it why, is there a reason to limit to just accessory buildings rather than just development generally?
Not if you guys don't see that, right? We can put any building.
Yeah, you could, actually.
Just
We
for
could
the logic
also-
of, hey, complicate things that are already existing and let's just get moving on with the future, then I don't know, limiting it to accessory buildings, then we still, like I say, might have the same issue with a deck or whatever, and then we're back to where we were anyway.
A deck can easily be modified though. But to me, there's a huge difference between a house built without the correct side yard setbacks or a deck.
Oh, I don't know, there's some decks out there that I just assume rebuild the end exterior wall of your house is, take a foot off that deck because of the logistics involved sometimes.
So would you like it to say any building and or structure?
I don't know, I just throwing it out there, I'm just thinking aloud.
And do you want 100? This basically gives 100% variance. Are you comfortable with that?
If it's something that's already existing, I agree, you're not gonna make them tear it down, and if you try to, you're gonna lose, I understand that argument. So I understand like grandfather in what's already existing, so to speak, without having to overcomplicate it, because that's gonna be the outcome regardless. So I mean, if somebody literally already had that, and we've literally turned a blind eye to this point, well, that's kind of our fault, and it's already too late.
So what does all of council think about this?
I think it looks quite suitable the way you've got it written.
What if we did, I mean, maybe we should have a maximum of some description there, I don't know. Like, which is not bound by the maximum variance in section 4.56.
You could do
I don't know.
maybe varied by a maximum of 40%, not just
Yeah.
unlimited.
Yeah, like I say, like having a latitude in this case, but yeah, I mean, there should be some sort of threshold still, I guess. But yeah, I mean, realistically, this is the only circumstance where there should be a appreciable threshold. So I mean, if we're saying 10% is the norm, and this is, yeah, like you say, yeah, 40 or something here, it would make sense. I just don't like 40 across the board. This is the exception that the rule needs to be there for, I feel like.
I would rather have something on this. Like, I like adding a maximum in here. When we've switched it from just accessory buildings to basically anything, that's a lot of discretion to give an unlimited on. So I personally support adding in that 40% or some number.
Yeah, I know, and I agree with that notion. It's, yeah, having some sort of a metric there would be good still, but.
Well, 40 to me is also fairly standard too, Liz, right? You see it in a lot of bylaws, so, yeah, let's put a capper on it there.
All right. Moving on.
Then
Is that good with everybody?
Yeah, sure. I take it. Just a quick thought for you, Liz, we might have to just, amend the accessory building definition, but just put a note to look later because of this, just so we're in line.
Well, no, because we're changing it in the new wording, it's not accessory building there, it's
Right.
building structure, so.
Yeah, so we just have to change that definition of accessory.
If we're back on definitions, there was also under the healthcare professional thing, I was just thinking, should we not cite that as, like a health professional under the HPA? Because there's actual provincial legislation as to who's a health provider.
Yep.
It just says, or a qualified, health professional or whatever is how it was worded. I just read that there is actually an actual legislative definition of who's qualified to be providing health services, so.
Yeah, good.
What definition was that?
96, I think it was, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Nope, because that is home occupation.
92.
Okay. Healthcare facility means an AHS hospital, AHS clinic, or Canadian licensed medical practitioner's office.
Yeah, so like if someone authorized under the Alberta, HPA would, there's like an actual defined legislated who's authorized to provide medical services within the province of Alberta. And then it's clear as to who's, I don't know, when you have some weird not-for-profit that decides to license me in some weird Eastern medicine that got made up last week, does that make me licensed? I don't know,
Well, they have to have the Canadian licensed.
Sure, but there's healthcare's a provincial mandate, I guess, for starters, but under provincial mandate, there's the Health Practitioners Act, who defines who's allowed to perform what medical services. So just sticking with including the HPA in there.
What was the act that you referenced?
It's the Alberta Health Practitioners Act.
Yeah. And the Alberta Healthcare Act.
It defers qualifications to the HPA though.
Yeah, oh, good, yeah,
Yeah, the Health Act essentially cites, refer to the HPA.
gotcha. Refer to the acts, basically, Liz, and pull the definitions.
Yeah, essentially that was my point, just like, let's kick the can to the Alberta government and make sure they're saying you're qualified instead of us saying you're qualified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense. Perfect, good flag, awesome, like it. That's why we have workshops.
And definition 56, it cites Clearwater County.
Can you guess where I got that from?
Clearwater County.
I'm thinking Hankin County. Perfect.
Okay.
Liz, I've got an interesting question, not to take us off topic, and it's really not. But every once in a while we get kickback about our stockyards in town.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there, and they have, they're okay to be there. But, we got the Philadelphia lawyers that look up definitions when they want something. And of course, the stockyards are basically right in town. And the questions we always get are this happened way before our time, et cetera. That's the answer we get. But
Yeah, as long as it has development permits in place, they're legally allowed to be there unless they stop operating for 6 months or 80% of the structure's built down or they meet all this stuff. So.
Yeah. So is there anything, and it doesn't have to be done today, but is there anything we can put in the definitions that reflect that, like pre-existing buildings? I mean, I don't want to get too complicated here.
That is governed under the Municipal Government Act. There is a section in the act that talks about those pre-existing and what is legally non-conforming. And we reference that in this bylaw multiple times. So we can't overstep that. That's very, very specific on what's legally non-conforming.
But even if we could, realistically, it is kind of absurd when when you get Lloyd complaining, Lloyd, that stockyard was there and operating when you bought your house. In fact, you paid a discounted price for your house because of it.
That's right.
If that stockyard wasn't there, you would have paid more money. So you liked the price that you got because the stockyard was there.
Yeah,
but now you're upset that the stockyard's there. You can't have it both ways. Either pay more for the house or the stockyard's there.
That's right, and they're mad because of the smell, and they're mad because when they're sorting cattle, that stockyard operates all night.
But they sure liked it on their bank account when they bought the house.
Exactly. And
I'm kind of laughing a bit because that's the normal comment to people next to train lines.
Yeah.
Can't stand those train lines, but you knew it was there when you bought it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I just brought it up because it's gonna start again. Oh, they're weaning calves. Can you stop them? I get at least 5, 6 calls.
Like I say, it's judgment because the price reflects. If you look at any houses that have sold in Thorsby in the last 10 years, it reflects. They got a discount.
How much of a discount would you have gotten?
Oh shit! When Lloyd bought that house, for real estate sucked in Thorsby.
Yeah.
But I want to say even back then, a really crappy real estate market when nothing was really selling, so anything was kind of a good price.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like he paid 30, 40 grand less than he should have if he bought it over anywhere other part of town. It was just that nobody wanted to live across from the stockyards.
Yeah.
See, I don't know if it matters or not, but I mean, the stockyards used to be, it was shut down for quite a few years, right?
It was, very minimal
And then
operation.
new owners come in, and of course, they didn't apply for anything, they just assumed. They didn't develop anything either, though. They did buy the existing, they just needed a business license. They bought the business and continued like nothing had ever happened. But
Yeah, they just got
there
business
was probably an opportunity that time, prior to they got in there, that something else could have been done, right?
It's not that it ceased operating for me, Canada, compared to what it does now. Yes, it did very negligible, but it always was existing with a business license.
Correct.
So they bought an existing establishment that was dying, but not quite dead yet.
But it didn't
And then
operate
they revitalized it though,
it
but
probably
still.
didn't operate for 5 or 6 years, or maybe even longer.
It was still maintained, there was still functional activity in a valid business license.
Yeah.
So just because they were doing very minimal business doesn't mean they weren't operating, right?
Anyhow, I just thought I'd point that out.
Because that's what I have to answer, 5 to 10 calls every year, phone, summer.
Yep.
shut down that noise, I don't wanna hear those loudspeakers at 12 at night, or they have.
That does piss me off though, when they don't need to literally be using the loudspeakers at 3 in the morning. That is a little ridiculous, but that's not a land use thing, that's a.
No, but it's
standards
even
thing.
in noise, because if they're sorting penning cattle, you have to be able to.
No, but they need to plan and do an extra day of auctions or whatever they need to do. They can't, when they're like, well, we have too much cattle to run through, it's not our fault, we had to go to 4 in the morning. Yeah, it is, because you probably should have scheduled and planned better then.
Well, when they come to council, you guys can tell them that.
Well, it gets a little ridiculous, they push it pretty extreme sometimes.
Well, they're in the wrong spot. Most auction marks do go all night, right, when they're sorting and selling, but these guys are supposed to have.
I mean, that's right downtown.
What's that, sorry?
Pinoka.
Oh, Pinoka's right in the middle of town.
Yeah, it's in the middle of town.
Yeah. Old Jones, is it Old Jones old anymore? I don't know, but anyways, yeah, I know, yeah.
I get that they have to do what they have to do, but what I think they have to do is plan more days instead of trying to ram everything through in the one day like they do. That's where the problem comes in, I think.
True, and I think what they're trying to do is match all the auction mark sales that are going on close, right? Because everybody's got a different sale day.
Well,
I'm assuming, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll just leave it alone for until we have 1,000 calls a day, then we'll look after it.
All right there, Liz.
All right.
I think we beat that one to death. Thanks for this.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Development permits and notices. This basically says what's in a development permit and that we, how we advertise when they're issued, what we do, development agreements. We will very rarely do a development agreement in Thorsby. That said, if this bigger development comes forward, we will do one with them and they will have to pay securities, because the second you don't take securities is the same second you're signing up to have a world of hurt for your current and future taxpayers. And that is obviously not what we would want to do. So this gives us that ability to do it when we need to do it, but we won't do it if we don't need to do it. Next section is your appeal process. This is very much all governed by the MGA and the province. Appeal hearings for those within the authority of the SDAB. It talks about the process to do it. So this is very similar to what's in the MGA. We don't really do anything new in this because we can't. So it's very much about that. Appeal decision, how that's put out. Then we've added in the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. And what goes there is simply per the Act. Bylaw amendment process. Anyone can apply to amend this land use bylaw. Ideally, we would prefer if they were residents of Thorsby, but they don't even have to be. So that is what this section is about, is how you go about doing it. Public hearing. So pretty basic. Enforcement. So this section, funny enough, Donna knows more about than I do. Donna, do you want to talk about it?
Not really, I'm kind of bored. Yeah,
perfect.
What we found, and this happened when Liz and I were working together in Ruby or somewhere, that of course you can go through the MGA and you can do the $2,500 or $10,000 fine. But the problem with it is some of these contraventions, we can write a violation ticket for. And in some of these cases, they should get a violation ticket. We got one right now that he's been given an ultimatum, or he gets a violation ticket because he poured his basement without a development permit. Only he wasn't around, his cement contractor did. And they didn't come and see us. So we got a problem with that. So he's been given an ultimatum. A lot more bylaws now are coming in with an enforcement section, because you never really could before. You had to do orders, and then you had to go to court and all this kind of stuff. And for some of these contraventions, not huge ones, but like I didn't get a development permit, there should be a fine for that, or there should be some sort of fine for that. And if we give them a direct order and they refuse to do, then under 542, with the support of a peace officer, we can enter and carry out the order. And that's what happened with this building on Hankin here, right? She wouldn't let us in, the water was running, we got a 542 order, peace officers are 6 feet into the building and shut things off. So, because what we're finding too is they don't want to listen to the orders, they just ignore it. Then there's a whole other issue. Sorry, Councilor Corrigan.
No, that's fine. You finish what you're doing. I have different thoughts.
Okay.
No,
that's fine.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we're using the MGA thing on Section 4. If they fail to comply with any any provision, I mean, this is a fine not exceeding $10,000. We just wanted to go a little below, like the big stuff is the 10,000. And of course, we can suspend or revoke a development permit which hasn't been complied with. So that's kind of becoming now standard.
Nobody ever gets 6 months in jail.
I know they don't. I know. Go ahead, Councilor Corey.
Sorry, I was back there before we got too far past it.
Yep.
When it came to that advertising, for obvious reasons, I think maybe we should, there isn't really any violent, true newspapers that circulate in the town of Thorsby. I think we should have a definition of what includes a newspaper so that it ensures that we're advertising in appropriate places.
Oh, good
So
point.
in
Yeah.
the advertising section, you will see that it says or. It doesn't say we have to do all of them. Municipalities do not want to advertise.
The newspaper's a default though, and I just feel like we should maybe make it clear that when we say newspaper, it means other things than where it gets advertised typically.
If we're not going to do it, then I would remove it more than anything. Because these are your options for, the reality is we put it on the website. That's what we do from a cost-effective perspective. So we don't have to do all of these. Most municipalities still list it, but again, if you're not going to do it, delete it.
Yeah,
No, we have to do it in the Pipestone Flyer or something if we're gonna do it, as far as I'm concerned, so we
Yeah.
should just remove it.
I agree.
Okay,
And
perfect.
I'll tell you why that works is because we had one in Leduc last fall where the development authority didn't advertise it in every place they said they were going to in the bylaw, and the residents caught it and caused a stink, and that one we had to go all the way to court. All the way to King's Bench with it.
Really?
Yeah, we did. We won it. I mean, the SCB's reason was found, we had to give them.
Yeah, like the wording is, I mean, obviously it's bad wording there, because it's normally not all of, it's normally an or situation.
They used to
but, hey,
all
ready?
say all of. Most bylaws used to require that you would do all, so it probably was a hangover that they missed removing back in the day. And really regretted it.
They totally regretted it because the lawyer's fees alone, and these residents
Yeah.
were contrary to the city anyway, their downtown business, they were going right to the wall. So we had to go right to the wall, so yeah, I agree, take her out. Perfect,
Done.
thank you, awesome, good catch.
That saves a whole other problem as well, so that's wonderful.
You got it, brilliant.
All right, so moving on, we have minimum specified penalties have been added. I don't know if you guys want to keep this or not. It can also go in your fee schedule, or it can go here, or you don't even want it, but I wanted to give you guys this to think about.
But I do think, like, yes, if we are going to, it should be in the fee schedule bylaw, because again, it's like the definitions, but having it
Yeah.
separate and clear, because then it's easy to, it's all in one place and easily referenceable and digestible, and, so yeah, if we're going to have it, it shouldn't be in here specifically, it should just be referred to Annex C within the,
Yeah.
fee schedule bylaw or whatever,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah.
That would be my preference.
And what we'll do, Jesse, is we'll put it in the fees and schedule bylaw at the end as land use specified penalty option.
Yeah, because you have like separate, like appendixes or whatever, you have like, we have two, I think, in there already, so this would be C, I guess.
I was just gonna say, we've been normally keeping all, specified penalty options for every bylaw outside of the fees and schedules and keeping it in the pertinent bylaws, so like the dog
Oh, really?
control. Yeah, we don't have any other
Oh, we
specified.
should totally have it separate and put in there.
Oh, no,
If it's required minimum fee, if it's a lot of the time the penalties are very ambiguous and like up to $10,000 and 6 months in
Oh,
jail.
no, we've
But
got,
when it's a very specific minimum fee, they say it's not here's a minimum fine, like here's, if you do this, you pay this.
yeah,
It's almost a fee at that point.
right, but in
Well-
enforcement bylaw with a violation ticket, these are all violation tickets,
Yeah.
have to go with the bylaw.
You
These are.
can't just say
these are-
referencing, okay,
No,
that sucks.
good question, yeah, because.
So
they
are we
could be
moving
easy
these
to
or
run.
not? Donna, are we moving
no,
these or leaving them here?
Yeah, they gotta stay because they're specified penalties. Good job, Jeff.
All right,
If they were just a standard $10,000 fine or whatever, the MGA, it's different.
Can they be moved to an appendix at the end as well, though?
Yeah, we can have a specified penalty.
That separates it out and makes it more easily findable, at least, like having end of it, separate appendix, instead of including it within the bylaw, makes the bylaw more readable and easier to find the message.
Yeah, we can, because we do in the other bylaws. So throw this one at the end, Liz, with a heading specified penalty option. Right.
All right. So now we're at general regulations. This is where things start to get more exciting. Accessory buildings. This is where we talk about basically your accessory buildings and the basic rules around them. The only major change we've done here is portable storage containers as an accessory building shall only be allowed in land use districts where they're listed as permitted or discretionary. So we haven't changed anything else. We've added a section on bare land condominiums. If we need this is great to have.
Back a little bit, Liz? Sorry, Liz. Can I run you back to this portable storage containers?
Yep.
I totally agree with what you said, but we're going to have a challenge here with the high school because they think they want CCAN in the high school.
Yep, there's a whole section on portable storage containers or CCANs, and we'll get to that. This is just the extent. There's like a whole specific use section on them, so we'll have a big discussion on them.
Whereas like a CCAN is a movable, so it's not like, it really isn't an accessory building.
No, it's not.
So it shouldn't be in the same section.
And they're arguing.
And that's why we have this that kind of links them a little bit, but it's still a standalone section. So we will get there, Donna. We'll have quite a big discussion on them.
Not a problem.
Maryland.
Thank you.
Yep, Fairland condominium. We just added a few more clauses in there. Should we get one?
Got a question, Liz?
Yeah.
Sorry, going back to accessory buildings and uses, it talks about that it shall not contain a sanitation facility. What does a sanitation facility mean?
A bathroom.
Toilet?
Like,
Toilet.
Bathroom, yeah.
And so
Why
why,
can't you have a toilet in your bathroom?
yeah, why could you not have a toilet in your garage?
Okay, so this one is one that I often get to talk about. In rural areas, more and more people have a bathroom in their garage because they want to clean off before they go into their house. The main reason for limiting it is often has to do with secondary suites and people building illegal secondary suites. If there's a bathroom in there, there's a pretty good chance someone's going to live in there and you're not going to have the right permits in place for it. So it's an interesting one to kind of bridge the gap on which side of it you want to fall on. I know some have said that it can have a shower facility, but that's it. Well, if someone's putting in a shower facility, they're going to put in a sink. And so it really is, what do you guys want to do? There is no right answer.
Yeah, I would assume if I wanted to have a garage with a bathroom in it, that should be all right. But I know what you're saying of the living quarters,
But you could easily put an accessory building shall not be used as a dwelling unit without the appropriate, because that becomes a secondary suite, right? So you just delete that and you go, shall not be used as a dwelling unit.
correct.
No, I very much agree with Tracy on that. And there's actually, a bunch of places in town and otherwise that have a bathroom, because that's exactly it. Or if someone's out working on their car, even if they just gotta go to the bathroom, do they really have to run inside? That seems ridiculous. When I have to just go away and inconvenience myself just cause, or yes, you're covered in oil and stuff, and you don't want to get yelled at when you bring in dirty clothes inside. This is not unheard of, and it's not unexpected or unreasonable. Having a washroom out in your garage is not the same as putting in a 3-bedroom condo.
Well, they're making it a man cave and making it more user-friendly.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It seems fine to me. I don't know. It's expensive to do. I don't for most people they wouldn't bother, but some people do, and I don't see why.
Their toy shed and, yeah.
Yeah, I think just put a little different language around it, Liz.
Yeah, well, fine. Not a dwelling unit, I think covers it, and from there, cool.
And save them from using the lawn.
Well, literally, yes, because that literally is what happens otherwise.
Yep, 100%.
All right.
Right on.
So
Thank you.
Bearland condo, this is just if one comes in that gives us a little bit more ability to implement it. Not really a big deal. They're not common. Building height, we've added exactly how it will be calculated. And there you have a picture of it, which was there anyways. Corner and double fronting, nothing's changing. Design, character, and appearance of buildings. There is a very unique element here, and that is somewhere in here because back in the day, one of your CAOs approved a house on an angle with the front door not facing the front, and that was really controversial. So there is a clause somewhere in here about that. But this is really just pretty basic stuff.
Was it face house though?
It was put wrong on the whole foundation, like it was put.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Christine approving Faye's house.
She did.
Yeah,
That's right.
It was Faye's house. Yeah.
That's exactly.
And it was like a weird. She bought multiple lots from Ken Poffenroth and merged them into one lot, and so it was like a weird on a cul-de-sac. It was like not a normal situation. Like it was like a weird. We're going to take a bunch of lots and combine them into two different properties, most of which are already built on, and then build this house on the other ones, and it's on a weird curve.
Yep.
So yes, I understand how and why, but I agree it looks stupid.
Development on or near slopes. We've added in definitions of top of slope and toe of slope, and that was just critical to clarity. Development near water. You're going to need a surveyor, qualified engineer before you're developing near water. Driveway curb cuts, dwelling units on a parcel. Yep, we've added in that secondary suites are kind of there a bit. So emergency access to buildings, obviously critical. Stripping and grading and excavating. We've added a few more things around that. It's a discretionary use in all districts and shall require development permit. The last thing you guys want is a developer to come in and strip and grade a quarter section of land and abandon it. So this is critical as you guys are looking to grow, that we're doing that in the right manner and the right scale that both is economical for the developer, but doesn't jeopardize the town having to take care of a windy, dirty mess for 15 years because they go bankrupt. So nothing's changing under fences other than nothing really. Floodplain development and environmentally sensitive areas. Again, the qualified professional. And talking about what we would need to consider. Industrial uses. Just talking about things that we'd want to evaluate as part of an application.
Just so you know about, going back to page 61 on the LUB, about floodplain development and environmentally sensitive areas. We have a floodplain study coming. We're going to start the first part of it as soon as I'm back to work here. And so we could probably, once that study's done, we may have to put an amendment in, or it becomes maybe an ancillary document to this because...
usually we wouldn't integrate it into this actual document. We would just, as professionals, be referencing that one while we're doing our work. So no different than like there's engineering specifications. We use those as part of that. So, and our development permits say that you must be compliant with all applicable municipal, provincial and federal requirements. So it would be a great resource, and I would absolutely love to have a copy of it once it's there. But yeah.
No, that's fine. We could refer to it. All good.
I see another hand up.
For 8.7, the developments near water, it's like inherently ambiguous. There is a creek that runs through town. There is low-lying areas in town. You could make an argument that most of town is near water, depending on how you're considering it.
So this really does come down to you having professionals interpreting this. Near water, we look at setbacks from the water body, and it also depends on the type of water body and the circulations and comments with Alberta Environment and Protections Group. I can't remember their acronym. So that really is that you have the right professionals on your team to know when you need that and when you don't.
We're a small municipality and we never will have the right professionals for everything, and this is going to be one of them. So I feel like we definitely need some sort of metric here as to what defines near the creek is going to be the main.
Well, the end of the Public Lands Act.
Sure, but we should define this somewhere somehow. It's always going to be unknown and no one's going to interpret it properly because they're all going to be guessing.
What if we refer to the Public Lands Act?
Sure, but we just need something to clarify.
I agree. Yeah, refer to the Public Lands Act if you don't mind, Liz.
The only thing I would add to that,
member instead of a qualified professional, just because there actually is a body for engineering professionals.
Or PEGA,
yeah. But our definition that we put in utilizes the qualified engineering term or qualified professional throughout, and the definition, if you go back to the definition section, talks about that. Because we're not going to stipulate what type of engineer you need to use. That is the engineers who need to do that. So
in any scope in the province, you have to be a member of a PEGA, and if you're not, then you shouldn't be doing engineering work, right? So yes, whether you're a computer engineer or a petroleum engineer, you're a standing member. Even if you used to be an engineer, if you're not in good standing, you're not allowed to do engineering work within.
But from a civil engineering perspective, there's multiple types of engineers within civil, as an example. So
and they all have to be a member of a PEGA to do that
100%. But just because you're a civil engineer, does not mean you can build a building and also put pipes in the ground. They're very different specialties.
I'm very aware, and yet both those people still need to be members of that same self-regulating body, just like if you were a lawyer, you still have to be a member of the bar, right? Like, it's the same thing, but just a qualified professional is always just such an ambiguous term to me. Like, it means almost nothing because qualified by who? A professional at what?
So what I'm hearing then is you don't like the use of that definition, and to go change that definition. Is that accurate?
I never like the term qualified professional because it's inherently ambiguous as to qualified by what and for what, right? Like, you're a qualified professional in what regard, for what scope of anything, by who, right? Like, it's just inherently a problematic term as far as I'm concerned.
So back to my question then. You don't like the use of the term in the bylaw and you'd like it removed?
I don't think the use of qualified professional should ever be in any bylaw, no.
Okay. For reference, it's a very common term used in a lot of land use bylaws, but if that is the direction of council, happy to make the change. I'm going to the definition that, here's what it is. Qualified professional means a person with a professional accreditation, including but not limited to a hydrologist with respect to groundwater investigations, a landscape architect with respect to landscape plans, an architect with respect to building plans, a planner with respect to planning applications, an Alberta land surveyor related to professional surveys, a biologist related to environmental studies, and a geotechnical engineer with respect to soil and groundwater tests.
Wildly problematic definition. In numerous ways.
So you would like it gone?
Now we're talking about the problems with that definition. Very much so.
Does the rest of council support that direction?
Should there be something in its place?
Yes, I literally just said for the healthcare one, I gave a viable option. For the engineering one, I gave a viable option. For the, there's another one somewhere that we talked about, I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure there's a viable option for it as well.
Trying to think, can we, instead of naming the qualified professions, if we say qualified professional means a person with professional accreditation in a association, organization, trying to think, because mechanics, red seal mechanics are accredited and all that kind of stuff. So I just wonder if we should say an accredited and licensed profession.
Well, a PEGA is the big thing, right?
And if for an engineer, if you're not a member of a PEGA, there's no engineering in any scope of any.
So
I guess that's my point, saying yes, if you're saying a qualified professional and it's relating to engineering, they need to be a member in good standing of a PEGA, or they're not an engineer. They might have some guy with a CET from 20 years ago, isn't a member of a PEGA, and he sure as hell's an engineer, but he technically is qualified and he's a professional, just not professional what you want and not qualified to the standard you
All
want.
you have to put in there that they're a member in good standing with the PEGA, and then.
For the engineering part of it, yes.
Or with an association, with accredited, within a professionally, something.
Within like a member, again, a member in good standing of a trade, or it's like a self-governing trade or industry.
Yeah, it's like Cindy with her, with.
Like, yes, accountants, yes, they have, again, there's an
They have a
industry body, same with, again,
Regulation,
lawyers.
teachers.
I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it, but yes, I can think of it later and come back
Okay.
with a suggestion. But yes, there's self-regulating industries,
Yeah.
but they still have bodies that control who's allowed to do what. In fact, they control it better than for the ones that are government controlled usually.
Shelley, what is the association within, like, doctors, what's it called, where they do the regulation of doctors? Just
The College of Physicians and Surgeons?
Yes.
The College of Dentists, okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes, there's any number of those, like, yes, industry-specific bodies that accredit. And
Accreditation, colleges accredit, yeah, okay. Think about it for later, I'll think about it.
yeah, but if there's a way to phrase this that
Yeah.
specifies that,
Yeah,
right? Like,
let's just find out.
again, like there's like a biologist. Okay, well, what is a biologist mean? Is it somebody who has a hobby at looking at birds, or is it somebody with a bachelor's degree, or is it somebody with a PhD? I don't know. What's a biologist? Even in this, like, even though it sounds like a specific term, it's not as it's written.
Anybody could be,
Yes, I can say I'm a biologist. I definitely took university biology. That doesn't make me a biologist, though.
So did I can dissect pigs.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean? So where, like, there has to be something more
I
clear.
don't know, my God, my truck, I could be a,
Yes, exactly.
engineer.
Perfect, exactly.
No, this is good, I like this. We'll flag that one, Liz.
So I need to go back to are we getting rid of this term or are we coming up with a different definition?
Different definition.
Yes, if we got a better definition, then we can use the term throughout the bylaw, but the definition needs to make it clear that there's a very specific, like, you can't just say you're qualified and, but, you know, qualified by who and for what.
Do we want to stay with the header qualified professional, or we want to call it something else, of course, with must belong to blah, blah, blah?
I like just getting rid of qualified professional and stating it within the context, because there's some variation sometimes.
Yep.
But I know a person can just adequately define it to leave the term if we really needed to. It's never adequately defined that I've ever seen.
So back to my question. Are we keeping the definition or are we getting rid of it entirely and referring throughout the document to the appropriate professional and hoping we get it right? Because if we get it wrong and we're going to make somebody pay an extra $10,000 because we didn't leave options, that's just the cost of doing business in Thorsby.
No, I think it's not about getting rid of the definition. I don't think it's about clarifying with respect to not naming an architect or whatever, but naming must be. I don't know about the qualified.
How are they accredited? What is telling us they are qualified and a professional in a specific industry that's relevant to the concern at hand? Right? Like how, like we have to adequately encapsulate that rather than just a qualified professional, because it doesn't actually stipulate the degree to which they're qualified, the verification of their qualifications, the extent of their involvement or participation currently in said industry or in which region. It doesn't, like, it just leaves a lot of ambiguity.
Let's just sit on that one for a minute, Liz. Just leave it. We'll come up with maybe a different term instead of qualified professional. Maybe we just need the word professional, must be, da-da-da. And then we'll ship it out. I'm not sure what we wanted to say just yet. Just circle it for now.
Okay.
I'll have a bottle of wine to think about it.
Yeah, I'm sure when I'm like I'll be sitting on It's a Small World and I'll be bored and the right wording will come to me, but like,
Did
yes.
you ship or through? You betcha. I'll text.
Yeah, right at this moment I'm lost for it, but I'm
Yeah.
sure there's better wording.
When you're throwing up in the teacup, right?
Don't go that fast.
It was for me. Okay, Liz, floor's yours.
All right, we're going to talk about, I think we were already at fences. We haven't really changed anything here. The floodplain and environmental sensitive areas, again, this is where we're talking about qualified professional, and we have in brackets surveyor or engineer, but we will continue to look at that and park that for now. And then we have some more clauses here that we've just added that are a little bit more specific, give us a bit better direction. Industrial uses, we've added an actual section on this. As industrial grows and you guys have lands for industrial, we wanted to be able to have a bit more ability to review information and ask for information and explain that. So that's what this section is about.
Yeah, Liz, just on that, I think, on that industrial there, we have a situation right now in our industrial lots that we have a chemical producer out there right next to the creek. And does that cover all this stuff in here under that industrial uses?
Sure does for new ones.
Okay, what I'm looking at in particular is they're producing chemicals there. They don't have a berm or anything like that. Let's just say they have a leak in there, right? It's over there by the
When they set up, their insinuation was that there was nothing on site that was being utilized in any way, shape, or form that was considered toxic, and that anything that's there, as far as Alberta environment is concerned, they could just dump in the creek and it would be fine. Like, there was nothing in any way, shape, or form that was in any way considered toxic by Alberta environment when they built.
Because I've been told in the last couple of months from some people that produce the same chemicals that said that those guys ever have a leak there.
That is not what we were told when they developed it.
Well, I think they may have changed their protocol in there.
I don't know.
Because I have people that work in a chemical, and so I'm just wondering, are we adequately covered there?
It all depends on, for that circumstance, it depends on what was in their approval originally. And so we could go back and look at what their approval was and evaluate what they're allowed to do and if there was restrictions or not. And then obviously if they're outside of Alberta environment requirements, then there's conversations around that.
Okay.
So it would be more about doing an investigation on a specific one. But the reality is, if anyone's working with chemicals, their development permit should be outlining the chemicals, what they're doing, what they're allowed to do, what's prohibited, and that should have been in that development permit.
Okay, I'm with you.
I was just also going to mention, for that inquiry, we could also look into, we had just approved, I cannot remember exactly what it was, and exactly the year, but it was 22 or 23, we approved a discretionary permit for them for expanding their operations. So that's maybe something that changed.
Really?
I just can't remember what those chemicals were. They provided us a list of them.
Yeah, what I'm thinking of is like when they built originally.
Yeah.
And at that time, they were doing nothing that involved chemicals.
Yeah.
So they,
Oh, okay, that's something we'll have to look into there.
Yeah.
So they could be well outside of their permit and their approvals if they've changed their uses, in which case, once we have those specified penalties, we go talk to them about, look, you don't have permits for what you're doing. And if you don't come in line and get your proper applications in and meet our requirements, we're going to fine you.
Okay, that's a later conversation then. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All righty. Landscaping. This one's always interesting in that landscaping is our biggest time we care about it is when someone comes in with a new application, because that means they're building it usually like a new community area. And so we have a little bit here. If you were in like Red Deer or Edmonton, they have an entire landscaping requirement plans and documents. So this is just meant to give us a little bit of a footing to stand on, for lack of a better way of putting it. So that, nothing changing there really. Lighting, we've added in some requirements on lighting. One thing we're finding right now, with the crime rates that are happening in rural Alberta, is that places are starting to put a lot of lights up around their building because they want to keep them secure. And then they're causing a lot of other people to not be able to sleep at night because they're close by. And so we're putting in some regulations around that, essentially, to give us a little bit of a foot to stand on if we need to. Access to major roads, clearly we need that. We've just updated the Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors because they changed their name. On-site and off-site servicing and improvements, those might be needed. Do them. Projections over yards. This is an important diagram. The diagrams are more important than anything else. And so you have your setback area, but certain things can go within that setback just by a way of right. And that is like your steps up into your house and things like that. So we're not changing anything there, but important. Public lands and town boulevards, nothing's changing there. Public utility buildings and easements, nothing's changing there. Relocation of buildings or structures. Nothing's really changing here, but it's really important that when we do have them being moved in, that we do our homework at the beginning. So number one thing we have when someone moves in a house, and very likely to have when this new one gets moved in, is they move it in and then they don't fix the cracks and the problems that happen when you move a building. So that will be work that they will have to do.
Yeah, we got one coming, that one's coming like pretty soon, in the middle of May, I think, isn't it? That big one?
I haven't been told a date. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I'll talk to Grant at the end of Hankin there.
I don't know, I've always thought it was ridiculous, and I get you haven't changed a whole lot here, but I don't know why most of it needs to even exist under the whole landscaping section. This seems frankly asinine to me. I don't know, if somebody doesn't want to have a shitload of grass for the sake of cutting grass, then that's their prerogative, but even if, do we really care that 33% of the trees that somebody plants need to be coniferous? Is that really an issue for us? That seems stupid. I don't care. If somebody wants to put up a tree and they like that tree, they should be able to put up that tree. They shouldn't have to stop and say, well, I already have 2 deciduous trees, so I have to put up a coniferous tree so that I can put up the 3rd tree I want. This is ridiculous. I don't know. I don't like the whole landscaping section. I feel like it's very prescriptive over nonsense.
So
I feel like this was spending too much time on something that didn't matter.
This isn't for if somebody is renovating their house. We would never require this. This is for if somebody comes in and is building a new community. If you don't put in tree requirements, I can tell you right now, if someone comes in and they're building 10 new houses or 20 new houses, you're not getting a single tree put on any lot because each one of those trees costs them money. And the developers are not in the interest of spending more money than they have to. So we can definitely reduce it. We can take it away if you want. I do not recommend removing that. Once somebody lives in the house, if they cut down their trees, we don't care. This is about at the time of application when they get their first approval.
Yeah, I feel like it needs to be far less prescriptive in general, either way though. Fine, regardless, you want to leave something, that's great, but like I say, the 33% of trees have to be coniferous is a prime example. Fine, you're saying it needs to be a tree, great. But really, why do, what is that, where did that that seems very just arbitrary and a preference to me. I know at a certain point it's filled with a lot of people's landscaping preferences that didn't seem like they had any bearing on a purpose or reality. Then it just seems very unnecessary. Why can we not pare this down to a 1/3 of the sizes instead of worrying about what a 1/3 of the trees are?
I was wondering why it needs to be stated that it needs to be hardy to Thorsby. Whatever they choose, what should it matter if it's not hardy or not?
It'll be dead.
Well, that's their problem.
One of the things the reason I like some of this in here, and this is for new developments, not for your house. Here's the problem. When you have laurel leaf willows in your yard and when you have spruce trees in your yard, you've got nothing but problems with your mains, your sewers, and your waters.
But nothing in here really prevents me from doing either. So that's it. It doesn't prevent a real problem, but it tells me a whole lot of other things I need to do that make new problems. None of this needs to, a lot of this is we're just kind of getting, I don't know, it feels very prescriptive for a section that shouldn't really matter.
Well, we've never had a big development. You look at Madison, I mean, that was haphazard.
That could have been shittier, and there's not a single tree to be found either way though, so what does it matter?
No, so.
Because at the end of the day, they came and got they said, we're gonna do a development, they came and got council to rubber stamp whatever they wanted either way, and if we had a new development they wanted to come in, and they said, we're gonna build this, that, or the next, and here's what we're gonna do, they're gonna come to council and get it approved or not regardless, and this landscaping section won't even be considered regardless at the time.
Well, this one is still a development permit, right? So, it all depends how, if this goes through in the old Moose Creek lands, how do you want the development to look?
I don't know, because they're gonna come to us and say, here's what we've came up with, and it's wonderful and great, and
if it's not prescribed in here, there'll be nothing.
And the fact is, if they brought it to council and it was or wasn't prescribed, we're probably going to not be focusing on which types of trees they picked or not. You know, right? Like I feel
But
like
remember, a development permit
doesn't.
go to council unless it's in direct control. And even
And the only
then,
time it would be an issue is a large scale development. And in that case, it's probably going to be someone either having this bylaw amended or it's going to be direct control either way.
No, not this one that's coming, will be direct
It's
control.
going to be, we're going to end up amending a bunch of stuff, though. We're going to amend the bylaw and it's going to come to council because of that. I would be shocked to hear otherwise.
Well, then they're not much of a developer, because they're gonna develop what they can get away with. So I guess if you're trying, and this is a good conversation, I'm enjoying having it. So if we're gonna try and grow this town a little bit, and let's just play here for a minute. If we're gonna try and grow this town for a minute, and there's 50 acres over there on that Summerfall, and there's nothing there but houses, streets, and a street light, and that's it. There's no mention of a walking path, the walking path or a little green space inside that development for a park or something, right? It's just gonna be a bunch of crowded houses on 50 acres of land.
Well, there's nothing in here that says anything about them having to put a park or a walking path either, though. So are we going to add a new section for that?
Well, that's an area structure plan, not a land use bylaw.
Oh, well, perfect. So why don't we just include the trees in there then as well? Why can't you not, like?
I don't know. Can we, Liz, or does it have to be in here?
so the reality is, when you come in for your development, when you come in for an area structure will lightly talk about landscaping. It will not get to the level of detail typically about how many trees you need to plant where, because it's a 30,000 foot application. And so this is where, when we start to have all of these different things coming together, your ASP works with your land use bylaw, which works with your safety codes. And that's where all of these things are how you build a community. Your land use bylaw is how you implement and make it happen. So ultimately, if the council doesn't want landscaping, we don't have to have it. My job is to tell you the risks of completely removing it. So the note that I've written down is to reduce this section. I did not write down to remove it. So I think that it's working with what I'm hearing today, which is that you do want a lot less restrictions, but you still want new communities to have trees. You don't necessarily care what those trees are.
Yeah, we still want to
You might get a palm tree, but you might get a palm tree, and then you're not going to have a tree that's going to live for a year, but you might get one. So
when somebody decides they want to plant thyme instead of grass, I don't want anyone saying that that's good or bad or indifferent, because frankly, it's none of my, like, I don't care. It's not, it seems like we're really micromanaging far more here than we are in any other area. And there's other areas that we maybe should be micromanaging to this extent, and we're not. Like, I don't know, it's, for a small town that wants development, trying to tell somebody that what trees to plant where seems like we're really just getting overkill. I don't know. That's my opinion, but.
No, it's good. We can pare it down. The only thing I want to consider is, I really don't want laurel leaf willows and spruce trees in a residential area.
Sure, but then why don't we actually say that then? Because if that's
yeah.
actually an issue, that's actually a problematic, that these are not acceptable, then say that.
I'm good with that.
Instead of, we have all this, shit, how many lines in here about trees and what type of trees, and yet we still never hit a problem that you're saying is a real problem. You know what I mean? So like, we beat around the bush to say gee shucks, maybe do this, maybe do that, and never actually get to the point. And now it's just a big wasted, 2, 3, how many pages is it? Of just kind of dribbling on about stuff. I just don't know why it needs to be here.
And we can pare it down. There's certain things on floodplains and that we may have to leave in, but it won't be a ton of things.
Sure, like saying yes, you should have a certain amount of green space, front yard, cool, but really, you're going to start telling somebody, well, what if somebody wants to have a natural-ish sort of whatever you call it?
Zero-scaping, you can zero-scape.
Well, under here, it's saying, no, you have to have whatever it is, a certain amount that's lawn. No, what if they don't want lawn? What if they want to have, I don't know, what if they are doing other planter beds and stuff? Why am I telling them it has to be sod? You know, this seems stupid of us, right?
The soft, if we don't keep a requirement for soft landscaping being something that allows water to absorb through it, you will have to do a whole studies on your stormwater retention and your stormwater plans for your whole community. So this is one of the easiest ways that municipalities reduce their stormwater, by requiring so much of a residential lot to be permeable to the water. So just that one has a very
But by
technical reason
stating-
behind it.
By stating that your front yard needs to be permeable to water, as opposed to dictating the type of vegetation that has to grow, makes more sense to me.
Okay, so I've noted that this section needs to be rewritten. Am I hearing that from that direction from all of council? I just want to make sure that I'm following the will of council.
Is that what everybody wants?
Yeah, I think so. I was wondering about gardens. Is this,
Under
is
this
there
bill, you couldn't do
anywhere
a
in
front yard
here?
garden the way this is written. But what if that's actually a selling feature? What if somebody wants to do that? I don't think that's
Are
a
you allowed
problem.
to have a garden in your front yard as opposed to
A lot of places
to the back?
You can't pave your whole front yard either in a lot of places either, so.
The biggest thing on the front yard is you can't pave your whole front yard.
Yeah. Good. Okay, let us propose a new section for you to look at.
Okay, figure it out that way. Yep, 3 o'clock, you guys wanna take a 5-minute break or wanna keep going on?
I'm good to go.
Whatever works.
You're good, Liz?
I'm good.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. Limited access to major roads. We were somewhere up here, so I've just jumped backed up. That's just standard because you can't put turning lanes everywhere. On-site and off-site improvements. I think we talked about that. We did talk about this section as well. Residential industrial uses adjacent, and so that is when we're looking at applications where you will have a residential right next to an industrial, we're just going to do a little extra due diligence, and we're putting that out here so everyone's aware of that. All right, this is going to be a big conversation. Temporary structures and portable storage containers. Temporary structures were already in here. What we have done is taken the portable storage containers and added a little bit of detail here. Portable storage containers shall not be used as dwellings unless approved as a dwelling unit and in accordance with Alberta Safety Code's requirements. Portable storage containers shall not be stacked. Portable storage containers shall be located in the rear or side of a parcel, be painted and maintained in good condition, and be screened if deemed necessary by the Development Authority with either fencing or landscaping. This is a very basic requirements for portable storage containers. In some bylaws, you'll see a page worth. I did not think you guys wanted to go to that level. I could be wrong. The biggest thing here is in no place that I work are you allowed a sea can in a front yard. It doesn't matter if that's in front of a school or in front of a residential building or a commercial building. You can have them, but not in front. They need to be screened by the building. So that's pretty much the only requirement we're putting in here.
I know I don't know if it's a community standards thing or if it should be in here, but the other issue is they need to be weather tight and or securable, because some are not, and then just a giant cesspool of molding, gross, and animals getting trapped in the bent open door and such, right? Like if it's in, I get painting it and stuff is kind of part, like, you know, we're kind of alluding to it, but it needs to be like, not just painted in good order, it needs to be like, say, weather and securable good order as well. So like, I don't know if it's community standards thing more than land use thing, but like.
It encompasses both.
Yeah, but I mean, so did the paint thing, which is why I kind of wasn't sure, because I mean, they kind of both fall similarly in the same kind of thought process.
Well, you could say in good order. Liz, in this bylaw, can we refer to the community standards bylaw under this section? It's more detailed.
Absolutely. Well, the next section is actually outdoor storage.
Okay.
Excuse me. It does say be painted and maintained in good condition. So typically when we get into
Sorry, go ahead.
Typically when we get into a community standards perspective, we are going to that other bylaw. We're not, this is one tool in the toolbox.
Should we not just put in there that portable storage containers shall be in compliance with the community standards bylaw then?
Everything has to be in compliance with that, right? It's not just portable storage containers.
Good condition. The painted and maintained in good condition phrase is essentially alluding to the job of the community standards bylaw, which is why I wasn't sure if I should even be bothering to reference that here or in a different time and place, because I feel like it's all like kind of the same linked thought, and we're doing half of it.
Does anyone know what that bylaw is?
I don't know the
Number?
number offhand. No.
2016 or something. I think I have it in our Dropbox. 2016-07 or 2016-04 or something.
We can add that. You know what? It doesn't hurt to add that line. If it's important to you, add the line. No one's going to sue you over having that line there, right?
No, add it as D.
Well, I'd say a sea can that's been leaking for 5 years, that's full of God knows what from grandma, that's been like sitting there stored full of water, and it gets gross. Like it actually is like the big problem as far as
Like the one in
sea
the
cans.
wizard's yard.
Well, yeah, like that is like if people kept them weatherproof, I don't think sea cans are an issue. But when it's like been molding and festering, God knows what, it's like a health hazard.
Sorry, a quick question with that, because we've been talking for a while now that the community standards bylaw is outdated. Do we want to, or do we have to put the number in here right now and reference the number? Because if we go,
Well,
let's
whichever one
say
gets passed
later,
first.
or early next year, we change the whole bylaw
Yeah.
and bring a new bylaw.
But if this gets passed first, then we have to use the number that
You just
exists.
registered an amendment.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, do we have to have the number, or can we just reference the community standards bylaw?
No, you have to have the number, but then an amendment for here is real easy.
Okay,
It's just a one-liner amendment, so.
would that count as an administrative change?
No, not the land use bylaw.
Okay.
No, we still have to go through the 1, 2, 3 readings for an amendment, but it's one line change, so
Okay.
it's easy. Good question.
Just procedural.
No problem. Procedural's good. Okay, we got that one. I like it.
Okay, you think that'll keep people happy?
Well, we don't know yet.
You don't know yet, yeah, I get it, okay. All right.
Outdoor storage is the next section. We basically added this that you can't have your materials can't be piled higher than the height of the screening provided, like just some basics again. Servicing and infrastructure, you must have it, essentially. It's a bunch of ways of putting it, but vehicle access and drive-throughs, you must have permits. You can't just add one without the permits on that, and that's about it. The next section is specific use regulations. So this is what's different about the ones we just talked about is they're general regulations that kind of touch on everything. Now these are about specific uses. So alcohol production. We gave a section on this. I believe this was all pulled from other, I might be wrong. I can't recall. But this is essentially if you're going to run a distillery, because those are common businesses now. Just a couple details around that. Bed and breakfasts, cannabis production and distribution system. Again, that's where we went through and added that previous bylaw in. Cannabis retail stores, also pulling that in from that previous bylaw. Childcare facilities and day homes. We are staying out of this to the best of our ability. Go get your licensing and have fun.
100%. Leduc's in a pickle because the whole downtown core pretty much now is daycares and everybody's mad. We stay out of it. That's what we did with the last Thorsby AB hearing. We just, do they conform to the current land use bylaw and the MVP? Yes, they do. See ya. Go fight it out in court.
Gas bars, we just added a little bit more detail around them. Not much there, but if you have a new gas station coming into town, home occupations, major and minor. So we've set up a system for major and minor. Minors, you don't need a permit. We don't really care. I call those often desk and phone jobs. No different than where I'm sitting at home right now, or Donna sits at home and works. It actually doesn't make a difference if I'm here or not. I have no impact on the community, but a major could. And so that is usually a much different type of business. It could be a hair studio. So put in a chart to explain that. And basically the difference here is how easy you can just start doing your business versus if you need permits and notices to your neighbors so that they have a chance to have a comment. So common process that's used elsewhere. Housing secondary suites. We put some rules in here, that basically they're going to happen. One of my rules in planning world is if you know of an illegal secondary suite, enforce on it. Because the last thing we need is people dying in unsafe basements. We will get named if we know about them. We're not psychic. If we don't know about it, we don't know about it. But the biggest thing with secondary suites is to meet building codes, it's very expensive. So to bring an existing house up to meet the requirements, you're looking, I used to say 50 grand, but it's probably 75 to 100 now. Whereas if you're building a new building, you'll see often that they're just built in that way now. So kennels, we had animal kennels before, but we didn't really have a section on it. So we've just updated that. Manufactured homes, we've talked a lot about this. This has already been amended and we're just incorporating it again. Medical marijuana facility, that was all information that was pulled from previous. Solar collectors, these are about your roof mounted small ones. Show homes, if this development goes forward for Morningsong, you will have those come in. So just a little bit of information on those, their operating hours. Telecommunication towers, they're not governed by us. It's the most important thing to remember. They are a federal jurisdiction, but if we have nothing, then we have no voice. If we have something in our statutory documents and land use bylaw, then they may listen to us. They may at least read it. So that's what this is about. It's trying to have a seat at a table where we might get punted from the table without ever even knowing it. So use is permitted in all districts, that's standard. Wrecking yard, couple clauses here. Then we get into the parking and loading facilities.
What about under wrecking yard? The RCMP have asked, we do have a yard, it's not a wrecking yard permit right now in Thorsby, but we're able to have a compound when they're towing vehicles or when they're impounding vehicles. That's not the same as a wrecking yard, but it might look like a wrecking yard depending on how many vehicles are in the compound.
That'd be a storage facility.
That's what I'm thinking, kind of like Rimby's, right? When we develop Rimby's yard for the RCMP there, okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
So parking and loading facilities, these are always one of my favorite ones to talk about because they're funny. If you don't put any parking, then again, you won't have any, but the amount of time that we get it wrong is almost comical. One thing I would like to do, and I thought I had and I didn't, is it's not one per seating space. It should be one per square footage because you can change the number of seats you have in a restaurant at any time. So that's one that I'm just going to highlight that I'd like to change. But any comments on the parking section?
We don't really enforce it ever, I feel like. There's any number of places in town I can think of in the last 10 years that nobody ever makes anyone put in parking. So it's always frustrating me that we have the section in the bylaw because nobody seems to read it.
Well, let's see, in the development permit with the new building that's coming this month, I think there is, in the development permit, they do have to put parking in.
Like Rurs is a prime example. They went out of their way, develop a new place, move their store over there, and then 6 months later complaining to us that we need to facilitate angle parking because they don't have any parking for their customers. It was like within 6 months.
Yeah.
And nobody took it serious when I said, what about parking?
I wonder if that development permit was even done right.
I don't know. Nobody listened when I said, what about parking? And they said, they take care of it. There's lots of on-site parking. No, I think they literally just drew a map that showed where their lumber is as parking.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, we never actually take it, like, the parking, I feel like we often overlook and don't take serious, and then it becomes a problem, and everyone expects the town to fix it.
Yeah. I'm gonna look at that development permit, I'm curious. We can
Like, they have no problem telling us to change the street angle parking to facilitate their customers, but heaven forbid they have to put in a single spot on their property.
True enough. Okay, I'm gonna look at the development permit.
Okay, that's just an example, there's a half dozen others in town, we're like, no, like, seriously, put in parking, people.
Yeah.
So
Get it.
I have a question on parking. When it
Okay.
has to be enforced, if the rules are here and we're gonna have a variance of 10%, if there's a vacant shop on the main street and it was a hair salon and now it's a restaurant and their parking requirement goes up and they cannot accommodate that on site, do you want to turn down a new business in town?
If they have adequate patrons, that they have too much vehicular traffic, yes, it has to get solved or I don't want them there. If there's a small spot on Hankin Street that has 5 spots on the street and 1 spot in the back, and they're gonna have 100 vehicles a day there, no, I literally don't want them there because I won't be able to drive down the street and every other business will suffer.
Yes.
Agreed, yeah.
So, I mean, yes, I get it's bad to say, no, we don't want that business there, but no, at a certain point, if there isn't parking, they can't be there. Like, this is just a matter of practicality. We're trying to accommodate one business, will drive away every other business.
Yeah, we don't have enough parking on Hankin Street half the time for anything, when it's busy, the odd time it's.
So, yeah, I mean, if somebody has a high volume thing, if they have a restaurant where they expect to have 50 cars come through in an evening, I actually don't want them there.
But what if it's one
Or I
parking
want them to
stall
buy a
difference?
building next door and build a parking lot. If they want to knock down a building and put in a parking lot, that's great. I encourage them to do so.
So what if it's one parking stall difference?
We should be setting our numbers within reason, and fair enough, if we have, like, again, one stall out of how many? 1 out of 50 is a non-issue. 1 out of 3 is now a huge issue. When you say 1 stall, that doesn't say anything to me. It's out of how many stalls were we talking? How much parking did they need? If they need 1 extra stall out of 50, that's not a problem. If they need 1 extra stall out of 3, this is a major issue for me.
Okay. I wanted to make sure we had that conversation because this is an example of variance, right?
And does the loading facilities address the issue that's going on over at, the old Hoffman
That's
building?
ridiculous. And apparently, they were parked across the street in the middle of the day there, and I sent on email. They literally had the entire road blocked off and told me that it's okay, the town gave them permission.
No, it's okay in a commercial district for them to do that and unload, that's it. And they have to unload within a reasonable time, and they have to put out the pylon.
They did none of that and told me, no, it's okay, the town gave them permission, they can park there as long as they need to.
They are a real weird bunch of cats.
I've been
And
by.
I said, that's funny, because I'm actually on town council, and this is the first I've heard of it, so.
And it should be not at peak times as well.
And that's why I said, I turn a blind eye to you guys doing this at 8 o'clock at night because no one cares. I said, it's the middle of the afternoon, come on, like, and I said, well, but we want to get done for the weekend early.
That's right, yeah.
That was their issue, is, well, they wanted to get done early because it was Friday. I don't give a shit about your weekend plans, like, you're blocking traffic.
Yeah, they're on my radar. When I get back next week, I'll deal with it.
So, but does the bylaws address these issues, or?
They usually do, the old one I don't think did. Usually your traffic bylaw identifies it too, that.
You can't block a road without.
Yeah, you have to.
Straight across the road.
I know, I've seen it when I came through here at night one night.
Well, I said 8 o'clock at night and fine.
Yeah,
Well, at night they do it in the dark, they don't even have headlights on.
yeah.
Well, I agree, they should be putting up, at least putting up pylons and stuff, but it's very frustrating.
Yeah, it's under our traffic bylaw, to be quite frank with you. We'll cite them on the traffic bylaw. I'll send them a letter and and that's their first and last.
But the fact that the town said, like, that, I was like, okay, like, now you're like insult to injury here, come on, man.
Now you know they're lying. Yeah, exactly. They can't even park straight. I saw that night too. They just kind of pull in. And that is a commercial district for sure, but they don't get all night and they can't leave it there for 2 or 3 hours.
No, that's it. Like, I get if somebody's like actually just unloading something, like, okay, like you're like middle of the afternoon, just
Or
full on,
loading
just
up
blocking
something.
off the road because you want it.
I see the guys down the street here, that shop there that gets stuff from whatever, Costco, whatever. They're always after hours, and they don't block the road. They park in an
Well,
angle.
exactly. Like, there's a way to do this that nobody cares, but like.
Those guys could be doing the same thing. they don't have to park that way, they can park parallel.
Yes, they would have to carry the stuff then. They like to put their ramp out so they don't have to go up the stairs.
But they don't have to.
Yeah, they could just walk up the stairs like a grown-up and it would be fine.
Yeah. These guys are a little elusive, so, but we'll work on it, we'll get it.
All right,
Sorry,
sorry for the distraction.
No,
you're
good, nothing wrong with that.
Okay, we're good, Liz?
Okay, signs. Signs is a section that you need when you need it, but the rest of the time you don't need it, if that makes any sense. Typically, we don't have a lot to say about signs. Honestly, I don't really care about signs. I don't enjoy processing permits for signs because I don't think my opinion matters. But the second you need that section and someone puts something up that is completely inappropriate and you don't have anything, Supreme Court of Canada will not stand behind you taking down whatever it is. So we need it. We hope we never have to use it. And we do have areas, spaces. One section that I have in another, sorry?
One question.
Well, I haven't actually read through this section in great detail because it just occurred to me right this second, but for like the theater, like the marquee or whatever above the theater, would that be considered a projecting sign, or like how is that defined in here? Just because I know he wants to redevelop that. He wants to redo the theater thing there.
Like on an old theater.
Is that is there anything we need to consider there, knowing that that's actually like in the foreseeable future getting redone?
And it's not beyond the face of the building,
It is.
what is it?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's gonna project out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so,
So I don't know if you were going at a projecting
So there's-
sign, and if so, any like specific things we should be considering right now while we're doing this, or?
you have a definition of a projecting sign here.
We do have multiple definitions
I
of
feel like that's
signs.
probably what it was, but.
Because a projecting sign means a sign which is attached to a building or structure, so that part of the sign projects beyond the face of the building or structure. That's a projecting
Yeah.
sign, okay.
That's what I kind of interpreted
Yeah.
defined as.
Yeah, so he would need a permit.
Yeah, but is there any other things that we want to take into consideration beyond, yes, he needs a permit, what and how, and he is looking at redoing it, he wants to redo it and keep it kind of authentic looking, but is there anything we should be considering now while we're going through the process?
Good question.
Yeah,
Do
I
we
guess
have any
it's,
details
last
on
week.
what his sign is going to look like? Because that would really help me be able to answer that.
Someone, he implied that he wants to keep it original-ish looking to what it always was. So if you just literally were to Google a picture of the old Thorsby Theater, it's gonna be that.
So basically what it would be, a line, sticking straight out into the street, probably very high, probably about 15 feet.
It's what you think of like your stereotypical
Supported by
1960s
cables,
theater.
and,
Kind of like the Rimby Theater, Liz.
yeah.
Honestly, I can almost guarantee there's a way that I could make it work. So-
If there's anything we should change now or look at now, considering we're going through the process is all, because I know it's coming up is all, so.
I will take a look at that for sure. I do want to draw attention to two clauses that I just put in that I didn't realize weren't in here. Clause 12, you need this one. Unfortunately, if you need it, you need it. And that is that no sign shall be erected which promotes intolerance, hatred, or ridicule of any race, religion, or segment of society. So I recommend adding that one.
Which one is that, Liz? I missed that.
I just added it, so you have to look at the screen.
Oh, sorry.
She's very fast.
She's very
Your
fast.
paper doesn't just naturally just, yeah.
Repopulate.
Come on, Liz. I have my whole thing here plugged in.
So another one that I've added that's been put elsewhere, I pulled it from the other municipalities. Their other one where they added this unique clause. The number of signs, locations and size of signs and size of signs may be varied to accommodate the placement of new signs on existing structures which were installed prior to January 1st, 2025. This was the result of essentially old buildings might have more signs than are allowed on new buildings. And they want to change something like the theater and they just want to put up a new sign. And this gives me and Donna the ability to go, yeah, we want that sign. It's an older building. It is replacing an existing one, and we can put that up there. So I just wanted to throw this out, hearing that conversation that adds a bit more discretion around the signs.
I like that, because that takes care of the theater sign.
I
Right?
mean, there's no other sign on the building. I mean, it wouldn't apply there, but I could see how it sound, like, you go to downtown Edmonton, and it's all over the place. You can see where, like, oh, that, like, old mural on the wall that nobody's painted over since 1920 is technically a sign still, so gee shucks, now what, right? So,
Yeah.
no, I see how this could be a thing. I can't think of a single place in Thorsby it would be, but it might be, so.
Well, and if he wants to put up a similar sign on the theater, because there was a sign there before, this section would fit him and it would.
Well, he's rebuilding and replacing it, right? Like, he's,
Right.
yeah,
Did he find
refurbishing.
the old sign, or is this a new sign?
I don't know what he's doing as far as the actual finished, like, the actual sign. I know he's looking at redoing it, rebuilding it, and making it nice again, like that, like literally making it look like a theater front again.
But he's gonna put in the same footprint, am I hearing you right there?
Yeah.
It'll be the same footprint,
yeah,
so that's, I think, what this clause is referring to.
That's correct.
Just a note, Liz, on these offensive signs and stuff. Have you had experience with that? I'm not saying you have.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of signs around about having sexual relations with prime ministers.
Yes. And we'll take those down.
I have not had personal experience, but case law puts it out there that basically if we don't have something about offensive signage, we won't be able to take it down.
And defensive
So no
signage
firsthand
based on
experience.
what? Okay, so do we have to add, I'm just yakking here. Do we have to have, let me see what it says, ridicule, et cetera, Now, is that the human rights definition of that sort of thing? Is the, might be the only one, it'd be human rights. So do we go
All
by
I
that
know-
definition?
All I know is this clause years ago went through some lawyer and it was okay. I don't even remember which legal firm it was at this point in time. But
It's fairly broad.
yeah,
Can
which
we
was the
have,
intention.
Okay, so you don't want it totally specific, no.
Surely if it's like to the point where you're taking it down, it's actually quite offensive,
Yeah.
and surely you can defend it being offensive at that point.
Swastikas and.
Yeah, like if somebody just like
statues.
has a different opinion than you and you take it down, like it's gonna be pretty hard to defend that, but
Actually,
like.
we did have that here, as a matter of fact. Thanks for triggering my memory. Because I had Chris and the boys painted over. It was on the back of Hoffman. Up top, they climbed up on the roof and behind the false front.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it was hate Jews and
Yeah.
Nazis, and we painted over it. Because we didn't have a good enough, description of it. We talked to the RCMP, so we just painted over it.
Yeah.
But it was totally offensive. Okay.
And does this apply to signs that people maybe put in their living room window on the inside that's facing out?
I don't know.
When you get to the point where you're going to be taking down a sign because it's offensive, whether it's in a window or not, you're talking to lawyers before you're doing anything.
Yeah, right. 100%.
Right.
Lawyers and police.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's broad enough.
I mean, you see the guys, some of the signs of the guys' trucks going down the street.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're really, I don't know if they're really smitten with him or they really don't like him, but either way, they got something going on.
Girl in paradise.
But those signs don't apply to any of this, right?
No. Trucks and cars don't fall under that.
No.
Yeah, I sure will.
Okay,
All right.
keep going.
We're going to move into your districts. We are not proposing any new districts or deletion of any districts, which is actually quite nice because that's just such a ton of work. But your district list makes sense for the community, having reviewed it again. Your R1 district. This is your single family home. This is the majority of your municipality. So this is what we put as permitted versus discretionary. Any comments? This is probably one of your most specific, important parts of each district is what's permitted and what's discretionary. So not much is changing. It's a pretty standard list. Ultimately, your home occupation minor, you can do, it's permitted. Your home occupation major is discretionary, and that allows the neighbors to have a notice about it, right? So We're not really changing any of your setback distances. That would just create a lot of legal non-conforming. There's no need to do that. Then we move into the next section, which is your R2, your medium density. So very similar setup. The difference is you have a couple more types of housing that are permitted. Then we go into your R3. Which is again similar, but you've got some more housing options once again. And that differentiation between home occupation minor versus major. And not a lot of changes in that section. Manufactured home subdivisions. So these are for privately owned lots. We're not changing much here as well. Just that home occupation change.
I think, Liz, with manufactured home subdivisions, Morinville has one of the most successful ones in the province. It is amazing, the meadows. And I think eventually that might be an option here with the developer because you're capturing the 55 plus market. They just want to get to a small town. Just look up the meadows in Morinville. It is stunning, absolutely.
What would they do so particularly, like, what do you like about, I don't know what we're talking about, what do you like so much about a particular?
What they did was, what Morinville did was a complete subdivision on manufactured homes, like the Digigliano's by the school, right?
Yeah, it's a trailer, it's a, yeah.
Basically a trailer park.
Call it what you want, it's a trailer. Yeah,
It's a trailer park. And so what they expect is there's landscape rules, there's, you know, you have to have a certain amount of accoutrements against the house. There's a club facility, there's stuff to do, there's a bocce ball place, blah, blah, blah. They turned it into really, not calling it a 55 plus, because there's kids and families there, but they've designed it so the lots are bigger, there's more trees in between, and all landscaped, all professionally landscaped. You don't even have to mow your own lawn if you don't want to.
Yeah, say like you were Warburg, and it's just like a row of trailers.
Yeah.
You try to make it feel like actual yards.
Yeah,
like actual, like, yeah.
It's stunning. You can Google it. It's absolutely stunning, and I think eventually we should look at that in Thorsby because there's more need for those.
Hey, I'm gonna look at whatever someone wants to develop.
Absolutely.
Thorsby's not a developer, so
No.
I mean, if you got somebody who's interested, I'm sure we want to hear them out.
Oh, I will. I'm working on
Like
that.
bringing a Palm Springs trailer park area into Thorsby, have the pool
Yeah.
and recreation.
Yeah, there's even a pool.
Their own
that's-
little park and.
100%, it's gorgeous. There's walking paths through it in Morinville. It's totally beautiful. It's called the Meadows. And they were working on that when I was out there when I was out there, 08 till 10.
It's gated.
Yeah, and it's well looked after, so we're kind of working on that, so just letting you know.
So
Your whole
what
subdivision.
What I've noted is to look up Morinville's manufactured home subdivision, Meadows of Morinville, and see if we can make that happen in a policy perspective. Obviously, a developer would have to come forward and do it, but we'll do a look at what their bylaw is and see if we can make ours more accommodating to it.
100%. I think that's for the future. Yep. Your floor is yours, Liz.
Okay. Central commercial, we've added a couple uses that are common in this day and age, like an artisan studio and shop, alcohol production. So we've just done a couple different things there. And then again, we didn't really change. Sorry?
Why would you take out the drive-through, Liz? What, not that we're gonna have any, but.
Yeah, the lack of demand is not a reason to prohibit, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I just
We
wondering why that.
left the drive-throughs in the highway commercial area, I believe, and that was the thought, is a drive-through is more appropriate there. But we can definitely keep it in here, and as a discretionary use, that's not a problem at all. It's back.
Yeah, if somebody really wanted to, I don't imagine anyone wants to, but yeah.
Yeah, it's back, easy enough. My thought was you're more likely to have one in the other area, but.
Well, I very much agree the likelihood is far greater, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'd probably take it where we can get it.
Yep.
Perfect.
So in the central commercial area, we've added industrial light and farmers market as discretionary uses, and obviously the drive-through is still there. And then industrial, we've added a couple different options in here. And
Nightclubs, there's apparently real exciting nightlife in Thorsby.
Well, it could be an underground speakeasy we want to develop.
Sounds like it by going through all this stuff, yeah.
And then we go into public services. So this is like your parks more than anything. And you will see this is where your school is. A portable storage container is now listed as discretionary. So if they apply and we ever get an application from them that's complete, we would evaluate it on its location. It needs to be behind the building. And then because it's discretionary, we would notify neighbors and they would be able to appeal it if they so chose to. So that is a direct result of the conversations I had with the principal there. And so this would allow that to happen as long as it was at the rear of the building. And then urban holdings, this is your farmlands that are just kind of there. So we've added a couple options out here. But really the goal is not to see urban holdings expand. You want urban holdings to redevelop. So a couple things there, but one day we'll see some people come in and do some development. And then your direct control district that sets up your standards. And this is the direct control district we did last year. So just incorporating it, nothing new there. Subdivision regulations are at the end. Those should be moved up. I don't know why they're at the end. They should be back up with development permit regulations. I just think I wrote them there and then didn't move them. And this is again, just the way the province makes us do it. So there's nothing really to change there. And that's land use bylaw in 2.5 hours.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And then this shouldn't be done every, I don't know, when was this last one done? 9 years ago? We should be, and I would have given this advice back then, every year we should be keeping a list and coming in and saying, okay, we need to tweak this one thing. This thing hasn't been working, and do a minor update. And it might be every 2 years, depending on if there is nothing type thing. But that's kind of the way that it's done and should be done so that you're not having to do as big of updates.
I agree. Liz, just a question. When we have a lot of bylaws where you repeal something or a clause or something, do you want that put in this bylaw so we're looking underneath the section? Let's say we take down A-frame signs, let's say, and we have an amendment. Do you want that under each section where, you know, this section amended, blah, blah, blah? Or do you want to register?
If we're going to do a repeal and replace, it's less paperwork and the bylaw gets a new number. If we're going to do an amendment, what will happen is, for example, this clause, what I will end up doing is, let me just take track changes off to show you this. What we do is, let's just say your bylaw number is 2025-09. What we will do at wherever that happens is do that, do this, and then we usually drop the size of this a bit. So it acknowledges what number altered that section.
Yeah.
But
I know the city is pretty good at that. It can get messy after a while, though. It kind of gets confusing. So I'm just interested in your opinion.
And
So
I don't
that's
think
how.
you're sharing.
Oh, well, that doesn't help at all because, yeah. Thank you. You'll see this one has an amendment in it. So what we'll do is anyone with an amendment will add bylaw, blah, blah, blah there in small letters. But if you want to keep it cleaner, you repeal and replace with a new bylaw number.
And does that require a public hearing every time?
Every time you touch your land use bylaw, you have to have a public hearing.
I like the first one better.
I like that one better, the little one. Even if it's a little cluttered, that's fine. At least we know that particular section or language or whatever has been done. So, okay.
So once after we go out to the community, what I always do is I take the red line version to the community so the community can see what we're changing. And then once we know that, we get a bylaw number before first reading, we go in and we add all of that in. And so I can do it pretty quick. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Would you mind,
It's
sorry, I
quicker
don't know if
Sorry?
I don't trouble you. Would you mind like writing a step-by-step on how that process will work that I can keep somewhere and refer to every time we do it?
You mean our
It's just a
public,
bylaw amendment. You've done them before, Jesse, lots of times.
Okay, well, I just meant like if we had to write stuff in or redline or, you know, certain ways to do it.
I got that. I got it. You're good, Jess. You don't have to worry about it, unless you want to.
Okay, I will not, nope, I will not worry about it. Good.
No, that's why you're hired, Liz. You get to worry about all this stuff.
Out of everything I work on, I'm the most protective over land use bylaws, because the second we start to tweak with them wrong, then they get those issues. So yeah, when it comes to all of that stuff, I'll just take care of it.
Yeah, perfect. Because you're a registered planner, and we go after your air and emission insurance.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've known Liz a lot of years, I can say that.
All right, anybody else have any questions for Liz, or
No.
nothing? Liz, what do you, from us? How's your new council, they been nice to you?
What new
Customer.
council? Oh, I resigned from them.
Well, you don't have anything to do with them at all?
Well, technically, my last day as their interim director is tomorrow. And I'll continue to support them as a planning consultant, but I'm no longer doing their interim director and overseeing the department of 50 staff. I just decided that I'd like to be home to see my kid for dinner every now and again. And I like the flexibility of doing my own thing. And so, yeah, I'm transitioning to a consulting role to support their planning group starting Monday.
Oh, good for you. It's just that when Corey and I went to that session there, we sat with a couple of counselors and they told us they were gonna take you away from us.
So no, that ain't happening.
The opposite happened.
Yeah.
Literally, the opposite happened.
You sure showed them.
You guys are so tough.
I know.
So,
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your
Yeah,
help here. And,
then- I do want to remind all of council that we are planning on taking the draft to the public on the, what date, Jesse?
May 22nd.
The 22nd. So we'll have some boards. We're just going to do it in the lobby at the town office. And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
It's a show and tell, it's not a public hearing. Then we go to public hearing after that.
All right. Okay, well, let's get on here. I guess I need a motion to accept the workshop with information.
I will make that motion.
You, all in favor? All right, Shelley, you can go out and go wild tonight.
Thank you. Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
You're gonna
everybody.
win, you're gonna win. Thanks, Liz. Oilers are gonna lose. Vegas is
Go
gonna win.
Oilers! Go Minnesota!
Oilers are going to win.
Yeah.
They are winning
Minnesota.
this.
Good night, you guys.
Liz, you be quiet or we'll have a contract talk.
Okay, meeting.
Right, I gotta go because I just gave up a big chunk of my work, so I can't afford a contract talk.
We're good. You're good with us. Thanks, Liz. Appreciate you.
Have a good
Well, I
night.
got like 23 and a half hours before I gotta get in.